It was Bohemian Groves, what they call it that. So the reason it's important is the Republicans go there to, like, they ship in all these private hookers, all these jets land nearby, but they also have a lot of gay sex, which they use then to basically compromise people into the cult. And so there's a lot of gay sex.
Well, how do you know this?
I mean, it's a big gay hookup deal for Republicans. I'm just telling you what it is. And then they've got this ritual. So I'm sitting there during the ritual, and I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. The dude goes, shut up, I'll kill you. And they're all taking it very seriously. And I'm not saying it's a gay thing. I was just quietly going, oh, this is really interesting. And they're like, shut up, this is a very important ritual. And they were taking it very serious. Later, others infiltrated later that worked there and got us photos of it. It's an image of a kid. It's a little kid.
Because Moloch in biblical is who they sacrifice to Canaanite.
It's a bull, but they do it as an owl.
They do it as an owl, yeah. But that's from the Bible, is you would sacrifice a child to Moloch.
Give not your children to the fires of Moloch.
Right.
And
TopLobsta.com.
We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers.
We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely incredible.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim shit.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers taking control this now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, heading the clouds and wanna wake up to a dead in the grave. But then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days. Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government released.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That is TopLobsta, the father of disinformation. And today, we have a very special guest with us today, someone who has been recommended several times by the chat, by fans of the show. And finally, I was able to hunt her down and set it up. We are very excited to introduce to the audience Heidi Love. Heidi, for those who may not be familiar with your work, can you tell them what it is you focus on and where they can find you?
Sure. I am Heidi Love. I'm at the Unfiltered Rise podcast. I'm everywhere podcaster serves. I do have my own website. Yep. And I try to, I have a Patreon as well. And we do 2 extra shows a month there. I do one with an atheist ex-Mormon because why not? That's fun.
An atheist ex-Mormon? How does that happen?
I mean, that actually happens most of the time. People get really disgruntled and go, this is all fake and gay. And then they leave.
I was blessed to not have a religious upbringing. And the reason I say blessed is because I can see that. A lot of people, they get burned by one religion or another. And then rather than say, well, maybe it was my own personal experience and there might be something more here, a greater conversation to be had, they actually turn their back on it. And so, I see that happen very often.
So true. And I'm actually in your boat now and hopefully raising my kids like that. So I just believe in God and the Bible, and I don't do all that religion anymore.
Yeah,
so,
I can kind of see that. There was a point, so I grew up in the Christian church and kind of like forced to go there. And there was a point, man, how long ago? Like my old gay self was like, yeah, maybe there is no God. Maybe God is just kind of whack, and looking at the stories that way. But now coming back and reviewing the Bible, especially the Old Testament, I'm like, oh no, this is real. And the justification for what God is, Ed Mabry has actually really helped us. I know that you stole him from us yesterday.
Unbelievable.
Go check that episode.
I didn't know.
Is it out right now?
No, but it is coming out, and actually it is called The Queen of Heaven. So Mormons believe in the Queen of Heaven, and so I had to talk to Ed about it. I'm like, this is the guy. Yeah.
Wait, now I got to know.
Well, I kind of have an idea of what Ed thinks about it, but I'm not going to lie. As soon as that episode drops, I'm going to be there watching it. So very
awesome.
excited for that.
Thank you.
You know what that's like, though? And I know typically we like to ask you a couple questions to get into it, but this is an interesting conversation.
We're going to derail.
Immediately, 5 minutes in, I'm going to derail. That's like going to a sandwich shop and having like a really bad sandwich and being like, sandwiches suck, dude. Like, don't ever have a sandwich. Sandwiches are not the way to go. And it's like, dude, honestly, there's some killer sandwiches out there. You just had one bad one, you know? And it's like, there's a lot of that. It's kind of human nature to be so Well, it's human nature mixed with a cultural attitude towards Christianity or towards religion in general, right? Where it's like there is an entire apparatus built within our media that will celebrate you if you just utter the words like, there's no such thing as God because I had a bad experience. And what you really do is you then drop this religious experience and go and have another one with a new gang. Whether that new gang is atheist or agnostic or whatever it is, you're still engaging in that. You're just looking for a new community to fill that hole. So I just see it very often, and I understand how people can be scorned by their bad experiences, and some are certainly worse than others. But what I can't empathize with is the logical, intellectual aspect of it, meaning there's so much information here. How could you in your right mind cast it all away?
Yeah, for sure. That's how I feel too. And I was really blessed that I live in Utah. Like, I'm in the belly of the beast, like literal. And, you know, being an ex-Mormon, but that's one thing. But being an apostate that speaks out in Utah, oof. And so we, you know, we're lucky enough to have my mom who I could say that, like, got out, right? Like, she got out of prison. And she told me, and I was like, you're crazy though. You just don't know because you're not high up enough yet. I pulled that whole crap, right? Like, because you get really self-indoctrinated with your own bull crap. Like, you really are, it's not good. It makes you not a good person. I'm a much better person now.
Can we explore that, Heidi, then? Let's start from the beginning, because you're an ex-Mormon.
Yes.
Mormonism is something that, as I explained, I never had a religious upbringing, and so it's estranged to me. I don't really know very much about it. Can you talk a little bit about what your experiences were like?
The only thing I know is I saw the Book of Mormon. I know it was very expensive. It was very funny, very offensive.
Well, wait, I just want to say shout out to Not Nice Guy, who I know is in the chat.
Oh.
Not Nice Guy.
Very excited for this episode. And he got me 2 Bibles at Bohemian Grove. I don't know if you can see that there, but it actually says the Raven on it. And this one is my Book of Mormon Bible, right? This is what he's got me. The Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price.
Also, this is a quick ad for the Patreon, because we actually do, no matter how much I say that I can't stand our fans, we do value them. They come to the shows, they're here all the time, and we take their advice on who we should talk to. And I like the way this conversation is going already, so I think we should let her. What the hell is Mormonism?
What is Mormonism?
Who is Joseph Smith?
Well, I think for that, I will do the slideshow, but I will give you a quick bio on me. I am Mormon royalty, basically. Even in my DNA specimen, it says Mormon settler DNA. Like, I already knew that because everybody that's a good Mormon does all their genealogy, and I already knew what my genealogy was. So, and that's going to play into this conversation. But I was born into it. And for 34 years, I had a really weird dichotomy because my grandma was this super religious lady, and she fell in love with this heathen of my grandpa who was from Chicago and the South Side that just wanted to fight everybody all the time. And so, and he was a biker. Like, it was like this whole thing. So I just saw like that. And then I saw my grandma, and I was like, maybe we should do what she's doing. She seems to have it more together, right? Like, I want to go to jail. Like,
so you're actually, am I right? Is this feels like a silly thing that's about to escape my lip? You're genetically Mormon?
I'm genetically Mormon.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah. How do you square that and identify yourself as genetically Mormon?
Well, it actually says it on my Ancestry.com sample. And so,
oh, really?
Yeah, that's what it, but you know, they own the company. I mean, we're going to get into that, but
wait a second. The Mormons own Ancestry?
Okay, here's what they do, and I'm going to show you. They have a Batman cave, and I'm not kidding, full of genealogy. I'm not kidding. I know. This is why Mormonism is the gift that keeps on giving. We could talk as much as you've talked with Ed, and you will never get to the bottom of this.
You're making it sound cool, but please continue.
Yeah, I really like it so far.
Thomas likes it. Thomas is always like, I'm going to join. I'm like, you got to get married because you're wasting time, and you got to have all these kids.
Thomas, the Paragon
I got
American?
6 kids. Yeah. Me and him do a special together.
He cannot stop infiltrating groups. That's what he does.
Different cults.
100% he's a Fed. Please continue.
Yes. We do monthly Mormon Monday together. And so we actually, we do it twice a month now. Yeah. And so we have about 10 shows out, I think. So Yes, it's fun. Thomas, you should have said. No, I'm just kidding.
He probably has. I just don't pay attention to anybody. But it sounds to me like we have this Book of Revelation series going on with Ed Mabry, and it sounds like you guys have a Mormonism series going on.
In Thomas's defense, he's doing a lot of things. He's like creating
doing
Legos and shit like that.
Busy. Yeah, he's crazy busy right now. They're doing like a live every single day. So I'm going to shout out for Thomas, even though he didn't do it for me. Paranoid American and Donut are doing a live every single day, I think, for the next week or something, because they're trying to get all the money together for their comic series. So
good for them. Yeah,
yes, go
guys
check
should
it
definitely
out.
go and support Donut and Paranoid American. This is a growing community, and these people need support, and they're going out of their ways creating a lot of content. So if you appreciate it, go and support them.
Yep. So we got together, started doing this. And what Thomas will do is sometimes we'll do educational ones. Like last week we did Harry Potter Mormon because I'm stupid. But it was all true. Yeah, it was all true stuff. And I was like, this is the magical world of Joseph. And I actually added, this is perfect timing for you guys. I added a bunch of my magical slides in there. And I also am hills off of a Martinist deep dive, which is where I'm getting like attacked on YouTube because this guy thinks, I don't know, that he created this. Like, I do want to say to people, there's books and internet things that you can read and then you talk about them, but that doesn't make them yours.
Right.
So this guy is like going crazy on me. And I'm like, none of
Why?
this stuff
Because
is
he
mine.
thinks that you're stealing
I
his
stole
content?
his content. Yeah, but
That's
these are
such a
books.
ridiculous thing. I just want to say before we did this show, I was doing my other show earlier today, and I said, none of these things. You could do a show on exactly what I just did a show on. Is the name of the game spreading information, or is it coveting and gatekeeping? As far as I'm concerned, the name of the game is spreading information, and so go ahead and take what you will.
And especially when it's declassified CIA docs, like
please,
he's
get
like,
outta
I did
here.
a Mormon mafia show. I'm like, of course you did. It's freaking history.
It's
like,
also fascinating.
Okay. Yeah, fascinating. But the names are the names and the book is the book. And we all go to the same sites. And if you want to really deep dive, you can only go so far because history is at the end, like it's finite, right? Like we can only go so far. So shout out to that weird guy. But anyway.
You'll always find him. You always find him. So let's jump into this idea about, I honestly, I would like to get to the genetically Mormon thing, but I think it's important for the uneducated like myself to kind of explain where Mormonism differentiates from Christianity. In what ways is it different? Because I don't have a firm grasp on it at all.
All right, let's open up this slideshow if I can, because I think this is going to help a ton. And I'm just going to share my screen, and I have it all set up to go.
Awesome, and I'll pop it up once you get it on here.
Yes,
because this is something that like everybody is aware of the Mormons, and everybody is peripherally aware of Joseph Smith and the idea of these tablets, but nobody is really aware of the actual details, or not nobody, but most people are not aware of the actual details, the nuance.
And I didn't even know any of this stuff when I was a Mormon, most of it, because you
That's
just do
funny
what
how
you're
that
told.
works. That's funny how that works. Okay.
So this first slide here is, I like to put this in. This is newer. This is Joseph Smith Sr.'s family, but I just wanted to show as a funny little haha, his parents' name. I don't know what Christian family names their kid Azazel, like Azazel.
Sounds like Azazel.
Right. And we also got a Solomon on the other side. So I'm just we have to understand who Joseph Smith was, much as you're trying to ask me like, well, who are you, Heidi? Well, who is Joseph, right? So we have to understand a little bit about him to understand what the heck he was doing, what he got himself into, and what he said he created. So this is his mother, Lucy Mack Smith. And I've never included a photo before, but for this, I redid this. And I think it's really important to read about this little excerpt. And this is in the library from the Church History Museum. So you guys can figure this and find it. I'm not lying. But it's a little note she wrote to someone else. But this part right here is really important. So she says, let not my reader suppose that because I shall pursue another topic for a season that we stopped our labor and win it trying to win the faculty of a brack, drawing circles or soothsaying to the neglect of all kinds of business. Okay, she's basically saying that they're not lazy because they kind of got accused of being lazy a lot. But when she says the faculty of a brack, right, like Abraxas. This is
Yeah,
Abraxas.
you're talking about the chicken snake god, right?
Chicken snake god and the abracadabra. You know, there's a
Okay.
reason why Joseph Smith kind of gets stuck in an occult box for those that have eyes to see and ears to hear. What she's talking about is drawing magic circles, which is not this, but also a brack, and these little pyramids you draw for like manifestation. These are like manifestation triangles, and there's a reason why we say these words. Like, even though, you know, they come old hat to us, right? These are magical words and they mean something. So we're kind of finding out a tiny bit about Joseph. And I have to tell you, Joseph spent a lot of time with his mom because he got typhoid fever when he was young and it settled into his leg and he got osteomyelitis and his leg should have been cut off. But she was known as a healer and she was a magical folk healer, and she actually called for physicians from Harvard. Okay, these people are supposed to be lay country folk that can't read or write, nothing. And she's calling for doctors from Harvard. So I'm like, first off, bull.
That's a red
like,
flag,
no.
right?
Yeah, exactly. She knew some people. Let's get real. And I don't blame her. I'd call him too if it was my kid. But like, she didn't want his leg chopped off. Back then, that was a pretty bad deal because you need, you know, to work and all the things. Like, even nowadays, it'd be hard. But so they came in and actually took out the infected bone multiple times. And so he had to recover a lot. And if you know anything about people that are stuck and sick, like JFK was one, they are usually turned into voracious readers because there was no TV. Like, what was he going to do with himself, you know? So he is 14 when this vision happens that I'm showing you here. He gets better, and he's known as a scryer. He's actually known as a virgin scryer. And his dad said when he was born in a caul. And he was really excited about it because that means the bag came out intact. And so it was a mystical sign. And he was super excited. So from the time Joseph,
Heidi, what is a scryer?
So we'll get there. I got a picture for you.
Gotcha.
So he is born in this call, and from the time he could probably walk and talk, he's been told you're magical. So I'm sure that he was in his own mind. And at 14, he wanted to figure out what church to join. He was growing up in the burned over district. He's circled by all these churches and different denominations, and you know, everything is really going around him at this time with religion in a like big way. So he goes out because he says he read a chapter in the Bible that says, let ye ask of God. So he goes out to pray about it. And he says this, and this will become important multiple times in our chat. A fit of darkness came around him and swirled around him till he kind of passed out. And when he awoke, God the Father and the Son were there. They are not the same people for Mormons, just so you know. They're all three separate. The Holy Ghost. And the Holy Ghost wasn't there. But he saw them and they spoke directly to him and said, do not join any church because we're going to help you figure out what you should do. Okay. So he says he had this whole thing. Well, then another thing came to see him, which was Moroni. And that is on top of every Mormon temple. The next photo is on the temples. I think they're kind of shying away from it now, but usually they are. And Moroni is said to be an angel. Well, here we are again talking about words. Angels never had bodies. This man was supposedly an old warrior, a Native American warrior that was all white and exceedingly white now, and supposedly lived in the Americas. And so he was already said to be resurrected, basically. And so he comes to Joseph to tell him where these plates are that he needs to go dig up in his backyard because he has a bum leg. Come on.
So are you saying, Heidi, that there's the precedence for that name Moroni is that of basically a Native American spirit?
Yes, I believe this is a spirit, and I don't believe he was high on mushrooms. I actually believe that he was magically summoning things, and I'll show you guys why.
Oh, that's interesting. By the way, Not Nice Guy said that the golden trumpet blower on the is Moroni.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, Moroni. And that's the next photo. So it's this right here. Well, and if you know anything about trumpets, actually, that's fascinating because if you know anything about Solomonic magic practitioners, trumpets are really important. And so we're going to get there. But these trumpets are sounded to waken the spirits to come visit you if you're trying to use necromancy and such things to bring them here. So I find that fascinating. So for 200 years, our official church history never promoted the seer stone hypothesis, which I'm going to talk to you guys about. However, in the past decade, a major shift has prompted many Latter-day Saints to abandon the traditional narrative, and now we all know that there was a stone involved with these plates that he received. The story of the plates alone, when he received those, is also interesting. But this is what I was shown as a kid growing up, because I'm older. I was born in the 70s, so we were told this was how this went down. He was studious, like telling on the other side of the sheet, this is, one of his scribes. He had multiple, but most likely this is Martin Harris at this point. But, what to translate and from a book from these plates. Well, that's not really the story. And the church likes to pre-game these things or post-game these things. And I do feel they did this with this situation.
I remember this part.
Yes, this is what's really going on. And if you've seen the South Park episode, it's actually historically factual.
This show is brought to you by the Van Man Company. If you're like me, then you're constantly trying to avoid products that contain harmful chemicals, especially when it comes to skincare and hygiene. From fluoride in the toothpaste to aluminum in the deodorants, avoiding these products can become a full-time job. That's why we're excited to team up with the Van Man Company to bring our listeners a solution. The Van Man Company offers a range of incredible products, like their Miracle Tooth Powder, made from natural ingredients like peppermint oil, ancient sea salt, and baking soda. And the best part? It's 100% fluoride-free. They even offer an aloe mouth rinse. Or how about their tallow and zinc sunscreen, made from ingredients like organic olive oil, organic beeswax, and 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef tallow. And there's more. With products like tallow and honey soap, coconut and magnesium deodorant, and peppermint beeswax lip balm, you can't go wrong. From head to toe, the Van Man has you covered. Listeners of this show can use promo code Nephilim at checkout to receive 10% their entire order at vanman.shop, or you can click on the link in the description below. That's promo code Nephilim, Nephilim, for 10% off your entire order at vanman.shop. From head to toe, the Van Man has you covered.
I remember when it came out thinking, this is crazy, because I was a Mormon and I was like, this is nuts. Like, there's no way. And unfortunately, actually, it's true. This is more accurate than what we saw on the previous picture, even though that's what I was told my entire life. And so to get away from this weird stigma, because they knew it was coming out, like the internet has been a horrible nail in the coffin for the church. This is the current
the same case, by the way, with Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes.
Jehovah's
yes.
Witnesses have been the internet is the bane of their existence, and the way they arm themselves against it is to just say that anything that you see on the internet that is
fake.
Not only is it fake, but it is prophecy, the fulfillment of prophecy, because one day they will seek to persecute us, and this is a manifestation of that persecution. So it's an interesting defense, because I am not discounting the idea that one day followers of some form of Christianity or another will be persecuted, but I do also find it convenient that it's a built-in defense system that is
for sure,
because
they use it to their advantage. Yeah. And Mormons say the same thing, because they constantly are talking about how persecuted they are. But this hat has never been seen. I'll tell you guys, this was a big surprise. This is the current president, prophet, seer, and revelator of the church. This is Russell M. Nelson. And these prophets commune with God. They literally talk to God. And so when he pulled this hat out of the deep, dark archives, I about dropped my coffee. Like, even though I was out for a minute, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is wild. And so, yeah, he did that. But this guy, he's a little bit different than most prophets. He's actually a member of the University of Utah's secret society, Skull and Bones.
Whoa.
And Allen Key, which is like Scroll and Key. And I have talked to Mark about this. Me and him have kind of chatted, and we've established, and through the internet, that this was set up by actual sanctioned members from Yale. And do they acknowledge them today? That's not on the table, but it was originally set up by sanctioned members. So, Yale's pretty persnickety. I don't think they're going to come out now and be like, yeah, there are peeps, but they were at one time. Um, so that's an interesting thing. And Russell M. Nelson has been plagued by many problems. His daughter had a child abuse SRA case against her that was conveniently dropped that got real weird. And I'm just going to tell people, you guys can find the book Paper Dolls. I also have a full episode on this called the Pace Memorandum. And Justin Riggs does a lot with this. So really great work. And so this is just a nice little picture of the magician, because I figured we're going to get there with Joseph. This is kind of a rendition someone did online of what Joseph was doing. Treasure digging. They were known as treasure diggers. Joseph was known as a glass looker and a treasure digger. And he was kind of prophetic. He would be looking in his hat and tell them, oh, you go dig here, dig there. And his dad was also part of it. So this is a more accurate view of what actually was going on, instead of writing at the desk and inscribing all the things he had. This is what was up. And this little pouch is going to be important. It's holding some layman's, and just remember that we'll get to those in their parchment papers. The seer stone is in his hand, and the white hat that you saw with the prophet there.
I'm seeing a lot of things that when you see this pouch, it's almost indicative of Freemasonry. The aprons that they wear, they look very much reminiscent of a envelope. This top hat makes an appearance a lot, especially in sort of the more esoteric circles. There are high priests involved with the church.
Sorry,
Satan,
David. I'm getting an echo. Are you getting an echo too?
I'm getting an echo from you, but I don't know if it's me or I have my volume turned all the way down, so I'm afraid that the microphone might be picking up the headphones, but my volume.
It's just weird. All right, so I'm getting an echo from myself.
We're gonna try and remedy that. Just bear with us, guys. But on the topic of this hat, there's also this precedent for sort of like, I forget what the expression is that you would use, but it's a high-ranking sort of priest or something like that. Magician inside of like the Church of Satan. They wear these top hats.
Oh, yeah, like Zachary King. Yeah.
Yes,
I've talked to Zachary King. Yeah, for sure. They, the top hats, and Joseph is like, they've admitted in the church now that he was a Freemason. He was a Master Mason. His brother's name is Hiram, for heaven's sakes. For years, they said, no, it's not. And now they have like a little video, if you go on YouTube. Oh, so you heard the church has Masons. I'm like, what? What is happening?
I want to say that, like, when it comes to this, a lot of people will outright dismiss, the story of Joseph Smith. But it sort of circles around this idea of like Christian mysticism.
Oh, it is Christian mysticism. We're gonna
and there are these elements within it that, like, it almost seems like, in my opinion, nothing long lasting is built on lies. In other words, if your foundation is lies, then inevitably it will fall apart. And I do recognize that obviously the Mormons are being exposed on the internet, and it's not good for them. But I do think in order to create something that resonates with people, there has to be an element of truth within it. And so to that point, I will say that Mormonism, just what I'm looking at here, is they were clamoring to something esoteric that maybe the main church does not want to touch. But
they don't. No.
Right, and there's an element of truth here. Otherwise, it would not resonate with people, and you would not be able to build your structures on it. The foundation would be crumbling. And so this is, honestly, I'm almost getting frustrated because everything you're saying just keeps hitting me so hard, and it's getting me excited. And I'm like already I know this is ridiculous, but I'm already thinking about the future. I'm like, how do we convince Heidi to keep coming back? Because there's something really interesting here. But I'm sorry to have derailed you. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. So this is one of Joseph's many rocks, and the church does admit to a couple. They like to say this one was the one, but here's the thing. We're going to show you one that they won't even allow a picture to be taken of. And when I say they are pulling things out of vaults, I mean it. There are tunnels underneath Salt Lake City that are crazy, and the church owns a lot of them. So I have a whole show on tunnels, but this is a really weird situation, and they'll let this one be shown, but not the other. But this one was kind of stolen. So Willard Chase is the neighbor to Joseph Smith, and he was digging a well with Joseph on their property, on Willard Chase's property, and Joseph asked to borrow the rock that he found, and they just never gave it back. So Mormonism is built upon a stolen rock.
Nice.
They're usually, when you say a seer stone, they go, yeah, there was one. No, there was upwards of like 8 or 10. This is the green one that they mention often. This is the one they won't let anyone take a picture of because it's just an artist rendition.
See, this is incredible because so much of our conversations here on Nephilim Death Squad lately have been surrounding these seemingly magical artifacts. And, you know, in the same breath that the Christian church does not want to make that part of the conversation, they are also, you know, talking about the Ark of the Covenant. There is precedent for whether or not the stone that hit Goliath was something more than just a stone. Or we did an episode with Prometheus Lens recently, Prometheus Lens
he's
podcast.
great, Justin.
Yes, Justin is excellent. And he laid out a really compelling case for this idea that the coat of many colors that Joseph had was actually a priestly robe that was removed from the Nakash in the garden when the fall of man happened. And so there is so much having to do with these ancient artifacts, and you know damn well that the Vatican more than likely has a basement filled with things, but these are not part of the conversations. I have a little bit of throughout this episode, it's only been 30 minutes. I got to admit, my affection for the Mormon Church is growing. Just because they have a willingness to explore these things, whereas Christianity, I feel like, has homogenized itself to make it palatable for the average person, and that was a mistake.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely. I mean, these mystery schools are there for a reason. They continue for a reason, and you know why? If it didn't work, like you said, why would they continue? Right? Why would they continue them? And so, I mean, I just find that interesting. And so, of course, they continued in churches because at one point you had to hide magic within, you know, churchy stuff, you know, or else you might get killed. And and speaking of that, his grandpa was well aware of that because he was involved in the Salem witch trials Inquisition, and not on the bad side of.
Uh-oh. Give me a second. Let's see. We got to get Heidi back. We lost her for a second here.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Echo's gone.
Did that help?
We're good.
Okay.
Let's do this presentation.
Back in it. Let's
Do
go.
it. We're back.
All right, everyone in the audience, act like that didn't happen. Here we go.
Yeah.
And it didn't
And
happen.
act like my dog was out there. He had to piss. It's been a disaster so far, but we're picking it up. We're doing it now. I missed the beginning on how Mormonism started, but it was this guy looking into a hat. We're not going back. I'll rewatch the episode. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, no, you're
Heidi,
good.
we were just about to get into something that was
Let
really
me
interesting.
share this again,
Right
and then
before we
I'll
lost you.
minimize. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, we hear
Perfect.
you perfect now. Everything's
Okay.
crushing.
All right, good. Okay, everything's good now. Okay, so on this slide, now these were exactly how the plates were actually obtained, and I have to
the
tell you
frog.
guys,
Yeah, why is there a
well,
frog?
that so many years after the angel came, Joseph had to go back and forth to the spot where these plates were to see if he was good enough to get the plates, and oftentimes he wasn't. And so one of the times the angel said, you know, do all these certain things, and if you don't do it just right, then you know you're not going to get them. And he did almost what he was supposed to, but then he didn't do it exactly right. So this frog, something like a frog, a toad, came and punched him. It turned into a man and punched him in the face. And so he went to get these plates. He had to dress. This sounds super churchy. He had to dress all in black. He had to go on the fall equinox. He had to do it at a certain time, like with the moons and the alignment and everything. He had to borrow a black horse with a black switch and all this crazy stuff. I mean, it sounds super not Christian. It sounds super
But
occultic.
it
that
sounds
frog
like
stuff, seems to come up a lot, right?
Yes.
In Merkel's work, the guy who made a
Yes.
deal. Okay, so yeah, you're familiar. He made a deal, or his brother made a deal with Baal.
With Bell.
And,
Yeah, I was
yeah.
shocked.
He's followed by that
Well,
frog in the Bible and
toads.
Revelations.
Yep.
Yeah, toads are witches' familiars. I mean, they can use them to manifest or carry out other things. And
I
so
think it's
witches'
because
familiars.
they're in dual nature. They're both aquatic and land dwelling, so it's almost like spiritually they can exist in two realms.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that, because when you're talking about wearing a certain color, and we know that color, black, but we know that color is linked to vibration, right? It's literally just light vibrating at different speeds. That's what generates different colors. So there's a vibrational energy aspect. You have to be at a certain location during the fall equinox, which to me suggests that there's maybe an issue with like a thin spot in the veil kind of a deal,
Yeah.
where like
Yep.
sometimes the energy is different and you can interact with it with a spiritual realm.
Right.
Honestly, I understand
Well,
people's
I think they
reluctancy.
hid. I think they hid some of it too. I swear to you guys, there's probably blood magic present with this situation, in my opinion.
I wouldn't be surprised, but it sounds like, because you're talking about Joseph Smith being a child. It almost seems like
He was older by now. He was
right, but
like,
in the beginning
yeah,
you explained that they were
yes,
like
he was
telling
14.
him that he
hmm
was special.
Oh,
And
for sure.
so when you do that to a child, I almost feel like Joseph Smith, if this is all in fact nefarious, was used by something spiritual.
Well,
Yeah.
in the book, what's the name? We just spoke about it yesterday. They came to set the captives
yes.
free. Yeah, the one of the women that was involved with the occult from a child. I think she had like some kind of deformation on her face, and in this place there was a bunch of nurses that were into this. Pretty much the whole town was into this form of Satanism, but they were basically like, hey, we'll pay for this person's surgery, your daughter's surgery, if you give us a vial of her blood or something like
Wow.
that. So and it seems like they'll do that with children who are suffering in distress or at a low point. They like to do that. So this guy had messed up legs, and then
Yes.
Yep. And no
story goes.
medication for any
Mhm.
of those surgeries at all. They did talk quite heavily on that situation. Well, and then it makes you wonder, are they open when you have a soul splitting problem, whether it be SRA or physical, mental, whatever, you're going to be more open to be able to be inhabited, basically, especially if he didn't know if they were a magical family. That I'm not talking about any kind of good magic. I don't believe there's any good magic that way, but there's some stuff that's a little more nefarious than other things. And so they want to push this off in the church as folk magic. No, this is specific, and I'll show you why. I have like proof. And I didn't even mean to find the proof. This guy that's coming at me says I stole it from him, but I was actually looking to mystic masonry and Martinism, and it plays hugely into this whole story. So yeah, this continued, and honestly, I feel like there's another thing we can talk about another time called the Salamander stories with Mark Hoffman, and they changed this. And Mark Hoffman was a forger. There's a book, it's just called the Salamander stories. But anyway, Mark Hoffman's story is here, and he was basically getting all these documents. He was a huge forger. He didn't like the church. He wanted to embarrass them. He quit believing in the church when he was on his mission. But I think at some point the church got wise to his baloney, because he had been making like mad money off of them, including government documents too as well. But they said he went crazy and made pressure cooker bombs and like delivered them to two people, and also tried to blow himself up. But there was none of the shrapnel in his for himself. I mean, if you were trying to do a bang up job, you would do it right? Like for yourself, like if you know how to do it. But if you're forced and they're like, just deliver these three things, and they set one off early or whatever, just to use him to get this story out, because they put this story everywhere. They put it in their magazine before they vetted it. And they said, oh, yeah, this is the salamander story. Salamander, not toad. Well, there's a reason for that. That salamander is linked to alchemy and good magic and even the Knights Templar, because supposedly salamanders can resist flame and resist fire. And so, I do feel like that was a way that they changed history, because now if you're in the Mormon circles where you don't know somebody weird like me, then you say, you know, a toad punched Joseph Smith once in the face. They'll say, no, that was Mark Hoffman. He's a liar. He's in prison. Funny thing about Mark Hoffman is once he went to prison, he sang like a canary, but all of a sudden he stopped and he laid on a floor because he tried to apparently take himself out again for 12 hours when he's in solitary confinement, and no one checked on him, but nothing happened to him except one thing. Guess what it was?
Sleep paralysis.
He laid on his arm that he forged with, and it has permanent damage to it. He'll never forge again.
Wait, what?
It's a real story.
That is crazy.
So my friend's husband actually works with these guys because he works out at the prison. He's still alive. Like, and this is real. Like, and I'm sorry, that just screams to me like they gotcha. You know, the Danites came for him, which Danites is a whole nother thing, but it's kind of like God's army for the Mormons, and they justify plenty. But yes, so I do feel like they were trying to make it more of a white magical thing, a good thing, instead of this dark toad magic, because that's witches' familiars and demonic stuff.
Right.
So again, this is a rendition from the same neighbor, which they'll just say, oh, well, he hated Joseph Smith. That's what it is. You know, Willard Chase hated Joseph Smith. And so
he came up with this really elaborate but esoterically accurate
for sure
depiction
scheme
of what was happening.
Yes. And so he explained this. Funny enough, all of this stuff is history. And the reason why I believe some of it is because Joseph Smith did such a sucky job at hunting for treasure that somebody took him to court and was like, you suck. Stop stealing from my uncle. Cut it out. You know? So this is all affidavits. These are not just willy-nilly in somebody's journal. These are affidavits. Everything that I'm explaining, the toad story, the dark clothes story, this is all from affidavits from his glass looking case.
I think that's important to highlight too for the audience that's listening, and including myself. It's like this is a religion that was, we're just talking about the early 1900s, right? So as far as a paper trail and one that's reliable, these things are documented. We're not dealing with something that's thousands of years old and we're going on, you know, second, third hand information and translations and things of that nature. Like, no, this happened in the early 1900s, and there are a lot of there's a lot of evidence out there that, you know, is readily accessible by people. It's just something that you don't associate with, because when you think of a religion, you think of something that's ancient typically.
So the year of the trial of Joseph Smith, the glass looker, is 1826, just in case anybody wants to see. It happened in Bainbridge, New York, and you can go examine these things all you want. Like, these are affidavits and different things. He even got a ticket for it. So, you know, this is the ticket. And this
That
rendition,
$2 ticket.
yeah, it's $268. He was a Mason. Probably the judge was too. But back then, who knows how much that was, right? Like maybe $100.
Right.
They said everybody was glass looking back then, so it was actually kind of unusual to get sued for it. So it was like jaywalking, basically. And I get that, but like at the same time, these symbols on the ground, he explained in exact like ways, and how the dad would use a sword, and we're going to get into occult items that were used by this family. And I just feel like, you know, if you don't see it by now, after we're done with this presentation, which is why I made it, because as an ex-Mormon, I know one thing: people will tell me immediately, you're full of it, you're full of crap. Like, nope, that didn't happen. So a picture says 1,000 words. Like, you can't discount everything, you know. And I didn't mean to find this stuff anyways. I was just trying to fix my life. I was just trying to undo any oaths I did. And so
I don't want to pull you too far off topic, but oh my goodness. But I do this. It looks like sigils and
we're getting on it.
On the topic of these artifacts and even the practices, I often wonder, because I do believe that these fallen entities cannot create anything on their own, but they can invert what God has made and twist it. And so I think that leaves an important question when it comes to mystic practices, magical talismans, various rituals and ceremonies. Is there a way where a follower of Jesus Christ could take these things and restore them and make them of God again? Or is
Not
this
this,
just something
not
that
this
is
stuff.
not this
Mm-mm.
stuff? Okay.
This stuff is we're gonna be getting into the magus and black magic. I don't think so.
It's an interesting word to use there. Okay, let's continue then.
Yep, no problem. So these are some of the magical items that are associated and well known with Joseph Smith's family. One of the things was Joseph Smith's Jupiter talisman. Some of the other things I'll show you are back and forth because they want to be like, oh, it was his brothers because they died together, but it makes no sense for it to be his brothers. And I'll show you guys my case on that. But this talisman was really actually precious to his wife. And so Emma was his ride or die girl. Like that woman, I'm telling you, she was a good one. So even though he was philandering and doing all these things, marrying up young girls and whatever, she stayed by his side and she kept a lock of hair of his and she kept this Jupiter talisman until she died. And so I'm going to show you guys what this Jupiter talisman is. If you look at this right here, you see this. Okay, so right there, this is the third pentacle of Jupiter, and this is Solomonic magic. The only, yeah, I didn't even know what Solomonic magic was until I started studying this stuff. And I did go on with Dr. Justin Sledge from the show Esoterica. He is actually a doctorate of occult sciences. And I'm going to tell you guys, like, he does a whole bunch of stuff on Solomonic magic. If you guys want to understand it, it's where I got a lot of my information from. And it is the greater and lesser keys of Solomon. And this here is actually defending and protecting those who invoke and cause the spirits to come. So there's something important going on there. It protects the one who is invoking. Okay, we're not just protecting ourselves because, we're scared, right? Like somebody's putting a witch spell on me or something. No, you're invoking. And also it makes them do what you say, right? So immediately they will obey.
And this goes to Solomon and the idea that he entrapped. We did an episode on it recently, or attempted to, and our guest dismissed it as being, I don't know, Jewery of some sort.
Right.
There is this entire school of thought that Solomon entrapped and forced demons to do his bidding and build the temple, and
with a ring. Mm-hmm.
With a ring.
Yes.
So this is something that is integral to Mormonism.
Yes. Well, they don't know it. They don't know it. I will tell you this. I think the top 3% of the Mormon church knows very well. That guy, the prophet I showed you, he's 100. Do you really think they're not practicing some really witchy things? Well, by the end of this, I'll show you they are. But I'm telling you guys, like, this is known by the top of the top. But like my mother-in-law, who's like the nicest lady, no, she certainly does not know. I did not know.
Yeah, it seems like Mormons are really nice.
This episode is brought to you by landofbiltong.com. Biltong is a traditional form of dried, cured meat which originated from southern African countries. And at Anton's Land of Biltong, they use premium cuts of Angus and Wagyu beef. They handcraft their own spice blends and slowly dry age their meats to give you biltong with a unique and satisfying flavor. Unlike popular brands of beef jerky that are filled with preservatives and chemicals, food colorings, and sugars, Anton's Biltong is made with natural ingredients. When I'm doing diets like the ketogenic diet or the carnivore diet, I can just reach over and grab a bag of Anton's Biltong, and there's no harm done. I'm able to snack and not feel guilty about it. I genuinely love Anton's Biltong. In fact, in between shows when we're doing a double day and I don't have time to cook for myself, I just walk over to the kitchen real quick, grab a bag, and chow down. Listeners of this show can go to landofbiltong.com and use promo code Nephilim to get 10% off all of their orders. Anton's Biltong plus landofbiltong.com is currently offering free shipping on any orders over $49.95. That's promo code Nephilim to receive 10% off your entire order from landofbiltong.com. Biltong is not just food, but a way of life.
Yeah, no, really. It's like they're just trying to go to heaven. And that's the part and why I'm pissed off and speak out, because they took all of this weird black magic stuff and told us, all the community, that this is how you go to heaven, and you can't go to heaven without this. And so when you feel like that, and your whole family, even though when I was in the temple, which we'll talk about because I have slides on it, I felt so scared and weird. Like, I've always had a really good, I think, a judge of character or whatever, like whichever direction you're supposed to point, right? And I just felt like I needed to run for my life in there. Were they doing anything horrendous to me? No. Was it weird? Yep. But like, I couldn't leave. My whole family was there, and they do this on and on, you know?
There, just to piggyback off this talisman of Jupiter, which is interesting because there seems to be a direct through line between like Baal, Jupiter, Zeus,
Yes.
Hadad.
Yep.
These are all the same characters potentially. This is the Baal cycle that we're starting to tap into. And there is a talisman of Saturn, I believe, which is fascinating because on one side of the talisman there is a pentagram with these various symbols, and in the center is a scythe, which is directly related to Saturn, Kronos, Remphan. There's all these entities.
Yes.
It's like a big thing to unpack. But on the other side, you have what people refer
The
to
table.
commonly as the Star of David, but seems to be the Seal of Solomon with a bullhead in the center, which goes to Moloch. And there seems to be some precedent for King Solomon building a temple to Moloch in a high place at the behest of one of his wives in order to, I guess, satiate her for whatever reason.
Right.
But
Yes. Yep.
this is lore that we've
Next
been
level,
circling
huh?
the wagon on, and I'm happy to be here. So okay, please continue. I'm
Awesome.
sorry.
You're good. No, I don't care. So also this is a magical, ceremonial magical dagger. There are certain things you need for magic. And one of them is a dagger. And this has the seal of intelligence of Mars. Now this is skipped over. They'll just say it like that. When the seal and intelligence of Mars. Okay, it doesn't sound scary, right? Wrong. Intelligences are demons. They're not even angels or like anything. They're demons, and we know this. Also, Capricorn is reported to keep men in safety and places security because of its exaltation to Mars. So all of this comes from where? The Magus. And so this is a picture of the real dagger. This is his real dagger. And this is where his symbols are on the dagger. Again, with the seal of Mars, they didn't even put the oh yeah, they did. Intelligence of Mars, Adonai, Scorpio. There's reasons for every one of these symbols. And if you look into Solomonic magic, they are very direct and specific. Joseph Smith was known to have killed a black sheep from this treasure digging, slit its throat and bleed it. The dad did all over the circle that he created. He's known to have killed dogs. This is not Christian or white magic. We're talking about blood magic here. And so, no. This is also another up close. And this is the tables. And so all of these tables, you can dissect these piece by piece by piece if you guys want. And a lot of these are just available. Like I said, Dr. Justin Sledge has a whole series on Solomonic magic that I learned a lot from. So now this is where I really learned some things.
Took a picture at Bohemian Grove. Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, this gets a little weirder. So there are Masons, and then there's something different called mystical or magical Masons, and they practice magic. They don't just talk about magic. They just don't deal with like the craft of magic or read books about it. They practice magic. And this is called the Ellis Cohens. And this Martinist or Ellis Cohens group to this day exists and still practice magic. And they are practitioners. And I do believe from my studies, everybody thinks Joseph Smith was Scottish Rite Mason. No, I don't think he was. I don't think the timeline lines up. I know of a guy that's critical that we're just going to glaze over at this moment in his life called, funny enough, brace yourselves, Lumen Walters, like the shining light, Lumen. And he pops into his life, and he had just came back from France, where the Martinist order is originated. And so I do believe I've talked to Paranoid American about Scottish Rite and history and timelines, and Scottish Rite just doesn't fit well enough. It had barely been organized. And so I just don't think that's exactly what he was into. Do I think he was a part of that? Sure, I do. But do I think that's all he's up to? No, I don't think so. With his grandpa being named Azael, get out of here with it. Like,
Whoa.
no.
Yeah, we went
Nope.
over that before you popped out for a second. His grandfather's
Yes.
name is Azael, which is
Asael.
away from Azazel.
Yeah,
Yes. And this is the Martinist order. And anybody that wants to study about this is really interesting. I have a show out about it called Mystic Masonry or Magical Masonry. I can't remember what we named it. But Pasquale is the main guy. There's three that are Willermos, Pasquale, and St. Martin. And St. Martin actually, which is funny because they named it after him, but St. Martin actually gave up and said, don't talk to angels. They're bad. Kind of like John D.
Like
And
he
so-
basically guy who's like, in hindsight, probably not a great.
Yeah,
move.
don't do
that.
it. Yeah, he was like, just kidding. We're not going to do this anymore. I think we should all do the work internally, not externally. And it became the order of the heart. And so, but these other guys were like, nah, bro, the angels are cool. So,
That's
but just
hilarious, though,
remember,
because I see that all the time where people who are willing to engage in some form of paganism just
Yes.
because they had an interaction with some spirit, whether it's a fallen angel or something lesser. And I think that people just get lost in the profound experience of it. It's so amazing that this must be correct. Or
this must
be
be
the right
it.
thing.
Right.
Yeah, and it's
This
like,
must be the thing.
don't
Yeah.
fall victim to your own amazement. You can engage with entities, and it is,
Oh,
you know,
It's
out
all
of
over
this
the
world.
Bible.
Right? But that
What
does
does it
not
say?
mean
Go
that
away,
they are the right
seraphim.
ones.
Do not talk to me. You know,
Yes.
like
yes.
or you might be entertaining an angel or blah blah blah, but we don't know what type of angel. There's fallen angels, there's good angels, there's
Mhm.
archangels, there's demons, there's lower level demons, there's higher level demons. Like this gets crazy. And so when you're pulling apart some of this stuff, and especially with Pasquale, and his work actually goes down into the Egyptian orders, and that's a whole nother thing. So I now know more about masonry than I would ever love to know, but also I will never know very much. Like it is insanely intricate. But I do believe this particular one. Now I have no proof of this, but I do believe it fits the best with what we're seeing here with Joseph Smith. I can't prove it though. So this is just, like I said, my deep dive where I found the Solomonic magic. That is what they practice in these orders. And so, and it goes clear into, you know, the Egyptian orders. I did think it was funny that as I was looking for a free PDF of the Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon, there's one. Well, it's uploaded by Brigham Young University, so that was nice. BYU, go
So more than
BYU.
likely, a little redacted too. See, that's
Yeah,
the
the Mormon,
that's the problem.
Mormon school. Yeah,
Right. And that's
Super
the problem
funny.
with trying to hunt down these things. Like we had a guest on, and we asked if he thought there was any real truth in the idea that the Star of David is actually the Seal of Solomon,
Oh,
or whether
boy.
or not that the Star of Remphan that the Bible refers to is the Seal of Solomon or the Star of David.
He lost
And,
his shit.
He kind of spiraled. Yeah, he spiraled a little bit. He suddenly became very emotional. But
wow.
He's like,
it's just
Israel's our
so-
greatest ally. You faggot. I'm like, all right, calm down, dude. Just ask
I
some
wish I
questions.
was there.
It
Oh my
was, you know,
gosh.
the point of the show is never
boy.
to debate. It's to allow the guest to lay out this compelling bit of information for us. So
He was
we
like,
can-
why
all
do these
right,
two stars look the same though, bro? And he
That's
got
it,
like real
yeah.
red. Like,
But
okay.
when you do try to look up these things, they are very obfuscated. It's
Yes.
it's a
Well,
contentious thing that's
It's mystery
purposely-
for a reason, right? It's a
Exactly.
mystery for a reason. And so whenever I'm doing research, I never get emotionally connected enough, like that guy that keeps like, this is my work. And I'm like, you're weird. Stop it. This is history. But
Right.
like, I'm just telling you guys, like all of this stuff you can find, but like you said, maybe it's going to have a dual meaning because at one point they're trying to hide stuff and it's not called the occult for nothing, people. Like, let's get real.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these tables, look at how familiar, huh? Like this and this. Like, we're going to get into it, but this is just a cool picture I took. This has nothing
I
to
got to
do with
tell
it.
people too, for the audience that's listening, you're going to want to watch this episode.
You will.
You're going to want to be on YouTube for this. If you're an audio enjoyer, by all means, please enjoy. But there is a visual component to this that is
This
actually
one's
very
big.
disturbing to me, because you will find this in everything.
She's just flashing symbols at us, and I'm like,
I'm like,
literally,
watch this.
I think my nose started bleeding.
Oh no. So
You know
this
what's
gets
funny,
even
though?
more strange.
Can I just
Yeah.
say, my son watches a show called Adventure Time.
Oh.
It's a lot of fun.
oh yeah,
All
a
these
lot of this
symbols
shit
are
in
it.
there though.
All
Yeah.
of these symbols are in it. I'm watching it. I'm like, why do they have to be accurate in their esoteric depictions of occult practices? Seems to
They're
they
MK
really-
Ultraing their brain. They're priming
yes,
it for
exactly.
later
My
to be
kid's
Mormons.
Start casting
Oh.
spells. Unbelievable.
So yeah, this actually was inside that little pouch thing that I told you guys to remember, that leather
Yes.
thing. Okay, these are what was inside of it. The bottom is a deciphering tool so that you guys can look at it later, because I'm not going to go through each symbol, but I am going to show you guys a couple things. These wheels you just saw on the previous slide, and I'm going to come back and forth. I want to show you this one. Look. Okay, this came from a witchcraft book. Okay, this came from Sibley's Book of Witchcraft.
It looks
And
identical.
so, yes, it is, these 2.
Mhm.
And they all have specific meanings. But I also want to tell you guys something. When things are sealed, see how this has a circle around it and they call it a seal?
Mhm.
That means you are controlling a spirit. That means you are saying, you will do this because I said so. You're the parent, right? But when you have these open ones like this, like with these angels, this is the Raphael star. When you have it open, that means he has a working relationship with this, and it's open. Like, you don't have to do what I say, but I would like you to do what I say. And maybe if you give me something, I'll give you something. And you have to remember, people are like going to say, well, Raphael's a good angel. Well, what if it wasn't the right one? How many Jorges do you know? Like, please tell me.
Touche.
How many Brians do you know? Like, come on, you guys. Like, there's a lot of people. That's why when I pray, honestly, I always say Jesus of Nazareth now, because I'm like going to be specific. I don't know
I
anymore.
think there's really something to that, because I often warn against the New Age's sort of, and not even just the New Age, but like modern society's depiction of Jesus Christ. For example, there's a song, I forget what the name of it is. It might be called Jesus Drives an Astrovan, but it's this song about like kind of hippie Jesus who like smokes weed and drives an Astrovan. Like, he's super cool, man. And I'm like, the reason that that's detrimental is because these things want your veneration. And if you're not incredibly specific about who you're praying to, then something else might be able to slip in its place, because like, that's not accurate. You're not sending that message to the right. It's like getting an address wrong by one number. You know what I mean?
They
Then all
also
of a sudden
said even the sounds, even the trumpet sounds for angels, they're very specific. And I have to tell you guys, again, I talked to Dr. Justin Sledge. His wife is a rabbi. He wears the yarmulke and everything. He's very Jewish. And he's also the esoteric doctorate, like from the Netherlands. He said, any of us Jewish people know we would rather talk to a demon all day long than an angel, because they are terrifying. He said they follow through with God's commands like a military precision. So if you don't have it exactly correct, they ain't coming. There's no
And
way.
the Jews they have a proclivity of trying to get away with things or skirt around some of the laws. So I could imagine they'd be afraid of someone who's like, hey, that's bullshit. Take the fishing wire down. Take it down right now.
Yeah. He's like, we don't want to deal with it. And also, we go back to the story. I do want to mention these things, like, okay, let's do this little fun thing that I like to do. Okay, John Dee was huge for me. When I first started looking into all this, I thought it was Enochian magic. I knew it was magic. I wasn't sure what. Because I never did anything like this in my whole life until 2020. I was a normie. I wasn't even awake. I'm a nurse. And when that happened in 2020, I was like, yeah, nope, not going to happen today, any day, not happening. And so it woke me up. It only takes like one really good thing to make you go ding, and like you start thinking everything's fake. So I wanted to fix my life, and I knew I did some oaths, and I started studying. Well, I found some things. I found this stuff and some weird stuff, and I started studying about John Dee, because some of these symbols relate to John Dee, and I didn't even know who he was. And I'm talking about the magician type John Dee, like that spoke to angels, right? Angels. But later, what did he do? He's like in the middle of it. He's spent 8 years working with Edward Kelly and another guy, I think for 7. And in the midst of all this, the angel's like, hey, but you got to give us your wife though. Like, switch it up, or you don't get nothing. And so I don't think God works like that.
Give us your wife, how so?
Yeah. They switched wives, and then he raised the other guy's son his whole life. So, yeah, that got kinky. And so we have what? An angel appears to a guy. He tells him, I'll tell you what you want to know. Write this book. And that book became many religions. It's like a huge part of like all the Knights Templar, everything. It's important. It's really important. Okay. To Christianity in one form or another later, this esoteric form of Christianity with John Dee. But then he switches wives. It ruins his life. It ruins the relationships. He dies penniless and almost like no kids left. They all got taken by the plague. His wife died. Everything bad. He had to raise the one guy's son. That guy died. His legs got cut off and jumped out a window. Like all bad. We got Muhammad. Okay, he's running around and he's got people with him. It's a non-written society. A fit of darkness comes over him. And so what does he do? He wakes up, he sees angels, he tells them, "Oh, okay, they told me to write this stuff down." So not really right, because they would memorize it. And so they walked around with him and memorized it all. And then it becomes what? A religion, same thing. And what does he have to do? Polygamy. Always a sexual price. What about Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard out in the desert doing deserty, grossy things? You guys can look into that. Anyway, there was a sexual price. And what happens? They say, write it down. And he does. And it becomes a religion, Scientology. We can do a fun one. How about Aleister Crowley? Because he went to Egypt and he saw something, but he said it wasn't an angel. He said Awas was an alien. Well, maybe that's what it could appear to him as, because he didn't give a crap, right? He was like, yeah, bring it, bring the alien. And so, that thing tells him to write it all down, and he does, and it becomes a religion. And what does he pay with the price? He was sexually like into everything. I mean, there was no price he wouldn't pay.
You ever read Cecilia's farts?
Yeah, it's all so bad. He got kicked out of Italy. He got kicked out of a whole country.
And Italians are disgusting, so you would imagine that.
I'm like, man. And so Joseph Smith, same thing. He sees an angel, he writes the book, and what happens? Polygamy and polyandry. Nobody wants to talk about the polyandry, but it wasn't just polygamy. He was marrying other people's wives that were already married, and I think it got him killed, to be honest. And guess what comes up at that point? I'm going to mention this now. He marries William Morgan's widow. You heard me. The William Morgan.
It's amazing the web that connects these people.
It's crazy.
It
and
really
so
is. None of these people are disjointed from one another.
No. And all of this stuff, and to this day, many of these symbols are on or in the Mormon church or on their temples. And this holiness to the Lord is on every temple. And so they know what's up. That's why I say the top is involved in this. There's no way. They do some weird stuff. I'm certain of it. I'm sure we will never know, but
the more you look into it, the more I begin to appreciate the simplicity of dedicating your life to Christ and his ability to break the bonds that you might have otherwise stupidly made. Because it just it seems like, certainly with what you're showing us, there's so many potential ways to slip up and become more or less like in cahoots with some dark spiritual entity. That will present you with something that seems to be true because there's some element of truth within it, but then they ask you to invert it in one way or another to mislead people.
Or they're horrible, right? Like they're like,
or they're horrible.
They're like, oh, okay, I'm praying that I can't stop drinking, so I want to be sober. Okay, well, we want you to be sober. The angel's like, you want to be sober? Yeah. Are you sure about that? Yeah. So they put you in prison for the rest of your life. You're sober though.
Sober, crushing. But I mean, for you to be able to just appeal to Christ and ask for forgiveness, ask for oaths to be broken, whatever covenants may have been made with creatures or entities, or like, it's almost like we're so stupid that we needed that. You know what I mean? That's almost what it feels like. It's like you're basically, mankind is more or less retarded, and you're gonna need a way out of this that's very simple. Very simple.
Yes, thank heavens. Thank heavens for all of us, because I mean, I would definitely be lost. And like I said, all of these, I put these on here not to go through each one of those signs and symbols, but I want people to be able to see them. And this one was the original one that I couldn't find anywhere else but with John Dee. But actually, also, funny enough, it's a Masonic password. So anyway, we'll
Wait,
leave
what
that
is
alone.
this? Because it's going off.
That's
That
an
was a
angel.
fascinating one to me.
Jubanlades. So
Jubanlades.
it's a very unusual one, and I reverse looked it up in the internet, and it came back with John Dee, and then I went down that road. Then I went down, the whole magical road of masonry. I've been down a lot of roads. I like the roads. I'm very conspiratorial in
Can
general,
you?
but
And I understand if the answer is no, because I understand that you've cultivated this.
oh, you're good.
Can you send me this when this is over?
Oh,
this
yeah,
slideshow?
of course.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. All right.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So all of this is very remember, he's supposed to be a dumb farm boy. I like to remind people of this every now and again because these are supposed to be stupid people, right? This doesn't scream stupid to me. I also want to bring up the fact that the reason why I say these layman's, this is another layman, could not have been his brothers is because his brother wasn't the treasure digger. His brother was the studious guy that was at college, even though they like to say he was everybody's stupid, everybody's working the farm, just dirt poor idiots, can't read or write. His brother is at Dartmouth. Okay.
Oh.
I just don't really believe that. She's calling people from Harvard. He's going to Dartmouth. It was like a piece of college inside the college called the Indian School Dartmouth, but I'm sorry, like, no, this is baloney. And again, we're back to, witchcraft sigils. I mean, Solomonic sigils. These are all calling down. Some of these are very specific and calling down for very specific angels and demons.
So they're just
There's
like doodling.
demons.
These are just his doodles.
No, this is Solomonic. This is specifically from the Solomonic table. These are specific calling down for either certain angels like this one. So some of these will go back here. Not that far. Wow, it went crazy. Okay. So here.
I'm talking about the one that had like all of those symbols, and it was a square image with all these symbols just packed in it. Who drew that?
The table. Yeah, the table. I'm certain that he was either taught how to draw it or somebody drew these for him. He did work with a Jewish guy that taught him how to read Hebrew and how to write Hebrew. Even though he's an idiot, he doesn't know how to write English. He's learning Hebrew. So I'm just like, come on, and so these are specific things. Each little mark is very specific. And you guys I think I might have put the table of Solomon on my other slide, and I'll open it after we're done. But it's all very, very specific in the greater and lesser keys of Solomon. Do you want to hear something funny too?
Yes.
Guess what they call? Okay, so if you're the man in Mormonism, you have something of the priesthood. Want to know what it's called? You have the keys of the priesthood. Funny. They're so funny.
In my opinion, right, that would be used by individuals in the music industry. So when you have somebody like
Yes.
Eminem talking about selling his soul to an entity called Rain Man, which is, I'm sure, one name of
Yes.
many that this entity goes by, this is the sort of thing that they're leveraging. This is
Yes.
ancient. You said for a time you thought it was Enochian.
I did. Solomonic. It's
I'm
Solomonic.
sure that it's
Mhm.
not. It's a stone's throw, though. From
It is,
Enochian.
but they are similar. There is
Yes.
some Enochian. There is Enochian in it because remember, John Dee, when he would scry, well, he couldn't because he was very analytical. But the scryer that he would employ, right, Edward Kelly, he would stare into what? A black obsidian mirror.
Mhm.
What is black obsidian? Right. Well,
Is it volcanic
it's
glass?
a crystal. What do we look at all day? A liquid crystal display. What color is it? It's black.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
our own scrying mirrors in front of us.
Their own black
So-
cubes.
When
Yeah.
I was younger, I did something that I would not recommend that anyone do, but it did not require any magic, but it still yielded results that made me never do it again. And all that was going in the bathroom and turning off all the lights, having
Oh,
one
yeah.
dim candle, and not breaking eye contact with myself in the mirror. And let me
Bloody
tell you,
Mary.
it's basically Bloody Mary. You don't have to say anything. And I wouldn't recommend doing this, but I'm pretty sure that everybody will have the same results. You know that kind of optical illusion where you stare at the point in the center and the details around the edges disappear? That happens to your face. The details of your face disappear.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
they reappear.
it's
and it's not
Zachary
yours.
King says that's how he actually became demonic, is
Yeah,
playing
I
Bloody
saw
Mary.
a version of myself that made me turn the lights on, and I never did it again. So
No.
this is something that you know, it's like right at the edge of your fingertips at all times. And I think
Yes.
if the media, if our culture just sprinkles in these symbols around us, the next thing you know, you're the unwilling participant in
Oh,
various
for sure.
ceremonies.
You have no idea. Yeah, you have no idea. And it's so easy to hide. I'm actually going to prove your case on that here in a minute. And this gets into some other weird things that happened. So Mormon necromancy. So I have to tell you guys, all of this stuff was happening with Joseph, and he's trying to get the plates, and he's telling everybody about it. And so the angel says at first, you know what? Next year I'm going to give them to you, but you got to bring your brother. And same time, same place. Let's do this thing. Well, his brother died, so he couldn't bring his brother. And I also found it weird that he died of constipation. Like, okay.
That can kill
Anyway,
That's a thing.
well, it can, but it makes you wonder if that was truthful. Like, there are certain things that they do to people that can, Heather Rourke died of constipation as well, the little girl from Poltergeist.
Right.
It just makes one wonder. We'll just say that.
And let's just
So
say
I'm
that
not saying
that
he
topic
was
is
the
always
oldest son.
involved.
Yeah,
Right.
he was the oldest son too. And so they have this whole thing where this was ran by Joseph Smith Sr., the dad of Alvin, and he basically says in this, we have to dig him up because you guys said we dug him up. We didn't dig him up, so we're going to prove that we didn't dig him up because we're going to show you, because we're going to dig him up. What? What are you talking about? Why would you do that? Right? Because maybe, and I like to make this joke, Alvin had a hand in Mormonism, because we're talking about skull and bones and the current president and certain things. I'm sorry, like, come on. I think they have all these people's bones, to be quite frank. But
Right.
I also find it fascinating that poor Alvin dies, and they dig him up, whatever they do there, and they check on him, I guess. Okay, whatever. But also Joseph got married at this time, and Emma, his wife, has a baby, and they get these plates, and then guess what happens to the baby? It's born shortly after they get these plates. It's extremely deformed, and it only lives moments. And guess what? They named it. They named it Alvin.
Interesting.
First son, first child. Also, first son, first child. Just saying.
That sounds
Doesn't
like a
take a genius.
sacrifice.
Sounds
Yep.
Like, yeah.
That's
Huh.
my thoughts too. And he actually had more kids die, and people will say, "Well, that's because back in the day people's kids died." I'm like, "Well, how come his mom had a bunch of kids and none of them died except Alvin later in life, right?" So what happened there? How come they all lived into adulthood but not Joseph Smith's kids? So a lot of them died. So I put this little piece of paper in here, and people that are Mormons will recognize it because this is a temple record that you can print off through the genealogy sites that we're going to get into. But I thought it was funny that they made sure that Hitler also had his stuff done. Not only did they baptize him, endow him, seal him to his parents, etc., etc., they did it for all the Jews that died for what they believed in, as well as Anne Frank. So there's that. It's kind of disgusting. This is the baptismal font for baptisms for the dead, like I just described to you. The Mormons baptize people that have passed on through proxy, which is kind of scary knowing what we know about how entities and different things can be allowed into you. So basically what they say is, okay, Heidi, today you are Elizabeth, and you are Elizabeth, and we are going to baptize you Elizabeth in this name, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then they do it. And you're like 12 to 15 at this point. You're supposed to be young ish. You're, been through all these little talks with the bishop, made sure you're clean and chaste. And you get in this oxen pool, which people are like, it's the 12 tribes that are law. I'm like, well, it also reminds me of Moloch, and we're putting kids in there, but that's
what
fine.
I was thinking, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's yucky. I don't. Yeah.
Are
And
those gold?
not real. Probably just plated, I'm assuming. But the LDS Church is one of the richest churches in the world, and I have a whole thing on money, where the money goes. But yeah, the number one holding Okay. Do you know who the number one landholder for farming is in America right
Is
now?
it Bill Gates?
Do you know who number 2 is?
China?
The Mormon Church.
Really?
Do you know what number 1 holding the Mormon Church's stock is in their stocks? Microsoft.
Whoa!
There's a lot.
Really?
Their top
Their
10
number
holdings.
one holding is Microsoft?
Yep, and their next is like Amazon, Alphabet, Elon Musk, Tesla stuff. Like they're in on this. They're in on it. And they have been for a long time. And so there's a whole show with the Mormon Mafia and CIA and like all the connects with the CIA. The Mormons are hugely a big part of 3-letter agencies.
See,
So
that's it just got me going when you said that. It's like my mind immediately jumped to what are the Mormons' role in all of this? Because
yeah,
you know,
scary.
I look at what's happening right now, and having just got Trump into presidency, we were talking about MAGA, MAGUS. There is something there for sure. I talked about it a lot today, actually, on my other show, Timeline Cleanse, and I never considered two things, Heidi. Number one, I never considered what the Mormon Church's role in this would be. But number two, I had no idea how dense and mystic
Yes.
the Mormons and their belief system was.
Yeah,
Kinda
it gets
black-pilling.
wild. Oh, yeah, this is extremely try and be like from this lineage and you're like, "Oh my gosh." Like every time I'd learn something new, I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, my brain's going to explode." But like it's okay now.
Right.
Just remember people, like this isn't your nice neighbor lady, I promise you. Like they don't know. They know not what they do.
Right. It's the same
So,
thing as like the Masons. Like the Masons is like a
Yes.
fraternity of people, not resource pool, skill sharing. You know, like I'm a plumber, you're a carpenter. Let's also hang out and kind of get involved in
Yep.
the community type of deal.
Well,
And at the
what I mean by
highest
like
levels,
by blackpilling, I mean it's just like it's another group of people that are conspiring at the highest level with
yes.
some kind of entities, and it's like fuck, man.
Today's episode is brought to you by PurgeStore.com. What if I told you that more people have died from parasites than have ever died from war? What if I told you that diseases like cancer, multiple sclerosis, acne rosacea, and rheumatoid arthritis can all be treated with parasite medication? Rid your body of these all too common parasites by using Purge Parasite Cleanse. Purge Parasite Cleanse is made with ingredients like zinc, carrot powder, garlic, black walnut. These are all natural ingredients that keep you safe while killing the parasites. And while you're on PurgeStore.com, try out their Digestives to promote healthy gut bacteria and aid in digestion. These, as well as any other products on PurgeStore.com, can be purchased with a promo code NEPHILIM, NEPHILIM, will save you 15% off of your entire purchase at PurgeStore.com.
I
a
dare
break already.
say the Mormons are higher up or on level of the Catholics at this time. And I will show you why towards the end of this presentation, because some things have happened recently that have never happened before in regards to Rome.
Can I ask
And-
you something before we move on
Yeah,
to that? And it's okay to tell me
course.
that we're going to get to it if we are going to get to it. But what then does the Mormon Church believe about Jesus Christ, and who are their
Who is their
coveted
God?
entities?
Well, if you ask them, it's God the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. They're 3 separate entities. God the Father knocked Mary up like the regular way. Like Jesus was born like any other man. Like he banged her. Like that's what they say. Sorry, but that's what they say. Not my stuff. Anyways, he was born like any other man, and was created like any other man. But they also believe in the Adam God theory where you can become a god. And so they denounce this stuff now, but I've got some slides on it. But I will say they try and come off as Christian, and if you talk to a Mormon, they're going to be like, "Yeah, we're Christian." What? Like they don't research into any of this weird stuff like at all. But also, they call their god Elohim. Very interesting. Elohim isn't a name like that. Elohim, like Ed Mabry said yesterday,
It's a
is
classification.
a classification. And so that makes me really anxious and nervous to know that that could be many things, right? That could, they also believe in mother in heaven. And so it gets in the weeds. It gets in the weeds a lot. And I just think that the people don't care and they just want to, you know, go along to get along and keep being good and, be the best you can be type of thing. You do feel really damned as a Mormon. I will say that. They keep you always feeling very oppressed. They never want you to feel that grace is ever given freely. You have to earn your way to heaven. There's no getting through that. You have to earn as much as you can earn. And this is why many Mormon people are extremely successful, is because if you bring 75 cents to the table, God will give you a quarter, maybe, if you're lucky. But it's not free. Yeah.
Which is the exact opposite of
what
the
reality
tenets of
is.
Christianity, right? Which is that the prophecy's already been fulfilled. He's already died for our sins. All we need is to accept him and repent, and we're good to go.
It's weird, huh? Isn't that weird? I mean, like, they want you to feel very oppressed. And, this state, Utah, has one of the highest depression rates. They have one of the highest narcotic abuse rates. They have some of the highest divorce rates, like all kinds of things, because these people get really depressed. I mean, can you imagine never feeling good enough for Jesus?
Right.
I can. I lived in that.
Also, to your point, the same thing with the witnesses, the Jehovah Witnesses, in that at the lowest levels, or at the I would say the vast majority of the congregation does not know the finer, stranger details of what goes on at the top. So yeah, it's not your neighbor that is engaging in Solomonistic magic.
They're not practitioners.
They're not practitioners. Unfortunately, they have what I would argue is probably some sort of a unhealthy spiritual connection to these things.
It's a spell. It's a spell.
It's a spell. Yeah. Not that it couldn't be broken, but they're not the people that are conspiring. They're just regular.
Not nice guy is saying that it's biblical precedence for baptisms of the dead. I gotta look into that. I don't know. It sounds weird to me.
Yeah, I don't know via proxy if we should be doing that, but I mean, we can look into it. But honestly, like, all of Joseph Smith's ceremonial things come from Masonry, and we know that. So, especially the temple ceremony itself, which we're going to see today a little bit of, it's very Masonic. And so, regardless, if you do, if a devil worshiper does a prayer out of the Bible, is it then okay, or is it the intent behind it? And that is my question here, is the intent behind it.
It seems to me that all the way down to whatever's being practiced right now, whether that's in the Mormon church, or if it's behind closed doors on an Epstein Island or something, all of this is just a game of telephone that's remained remarkably accurate ever since the time of Solomon, but really is something that was passed down to mankind from the fallen in exchange for what seems to be over and over again some sort of sexual exchange. Where Gary Wayne would say that it was an exchange for the women of mankind, and then you go on to birth the Nephilim and things like that. But this has always been it. There's always a sexual exchange for some sort of coveted knowledge
or blood ritual or a blood ritual.
Yes. And it's the exact same thing. Once again, the book of Ecclesiastes, right? Nothing new is under the sun. It's the same thing all the way to this.
Yes. And this is a perfect place to lead in on these coffin canes. When you're talking about dead people stuff again, like whether or not, they were trying not to be nefarious with the baptisms. This is nefarious. This is weird and gross. So these coffin canes were made because they dug up Joseph and his brother who died together. They actually took braided locks of their hair, stuck them in the knob of the tip of the canes, and made these canes out of their decomposing body coffins, like the nasty. Yeah. And so these are in the actual museum for Mormonism. Like, I didn't make this up. This is real. And so, this is the top of it. This is the knob on the coffin cane, bears the inscription presented by Brigham Young to Sidney Rigdon. These are key players in Mormonism. Brigham Young is the second prophet of the church, and it is one of 2 coffin canes on display at the Church History Museum. And they do talk about these canes being very powerful in the last days. Now, I have to tell you guys, when you're talking about canes and wands, when you think of a wand, yes, you can have a wand like a little wand, but you can also have what? A staff, like a Gandalf staff. Okay. These things are not an accident. This
Well,
is not by accident.
That's what they were throwing down with Moses, right? When he was
Yes.
turning his rod into a snake. Yeah, so same thing.
Snake, just like this, Joseph Smith snake cane.
Oh,
What the fuck, man?
that's
Yep.
not.
This
that's
gets
not an
weird.
accident.
No, it's not. And also here on the previous one, this shield, okay, you just see the shield and this, but look at this upside down cross. And I have to tell you guys, that's on the cane. And, they'll say, oh, that was an accident because everything is so purposeful in symbology. Symbology is never an accident. These are people that are working with intricate, tiny symbols. This was done for a purpose,
Right. This
So,
is the argument that I make when you, in my early days as a conspiracy theorist, one of the first things that cued me into something strange going on was all the symbolism that you would find in Hollywood and in the music industry. And people would say, well, that's just there. Number one, some
Yep.
of it's an accident. Number two, it's just there to kind of cause, a rise. And I would think about the idea that all of this is done so purposefully. You have set
Yes.
designers that make sure that everything is exactly as it should be. They care about the spacing between one object to another, the position, the lighting. None of this is on accident. And
no,
judging off
especially
of
like
what you've shown
Kubrick.
us- Yes.
Yeah, like you can learn that from films so easily. Like it isn't what we say as much as what you see a lot of times in film.
Yeah.
That's why silent films were some of the first. I'm going to turn this down because this is a reenactment. I do want to state this. This is an older reenactment. They have gotten away from some of these rituals. I will explain which ones they are when
How
it's done
recently
playing.
have they gotten away from it?
1980.
1980,
So,
okay.
there was one other change in the 2000s about veiling of the faces for women, which they no longer have to do as well. And I'll tell all of those things. But if we showed you the whole ceremony, it's like over 2 hours long. So you wouldn't want to sit here for that. But this is just a little clip and we'll go through it. I got to turn it down because it's for some reason it recorded super loud. I don't know why. All right.
What you are seeing is an authentic first-time ever on film reenactment of secret Mormon temple ceremonies that even most Mormons have never seen. And those who have sworn never to reveal these secrets under penalty of death.
The execution of the penalty is represented by placing the right thumb under the left ear, drawing the thumb quickly across the throat to the right ear, and dropping the hand to the side.
All of us who've been through the temple have sworn solemn oaths consenting to having our throat slit and our heart and our vitals torn out.
The execution of the penalty is represented by drawing the thumb quickly across the body and dropping the hands to the side.
In the Mormon temple marriage, the partners are sealed to each other for time and all eternity in Mason-like rituals. And without this ceremony, no one can enter the presence of Joseph Smith and become a god.
Pay, lay, air. Brother Pratt, having authority, I wash you preparatory to receiving your anointings for and in behalf of John Kimball, who is dead, that you may become clean from the blood and sins of this generation.
Sister Bradford, I wash you preparatory to you receiving your anointings for and behalf of
Eliza Barrett.
Eliza Barrett, who is dead, that you may become clean from the blood and sins of this generation.
I wash your head, that your brain and intellect may become clear and active.
Your eyes, that you may see clearly and discern between truth and error.
Thousands of occultic ceremonies each day are performed for the dead, so that they too can receive the benefits of Mormonism. Mormons are encouraged to have encounters with the dead, and it's not uncommon for demons impersonating the dead to appear to Mormons stating that they've been converted to the Mormon church in the spirit world and now want their family history traced.
your loins, that you may be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, that you may have joy in your posterity.
Your vitals and bowels, that they may be strong and healthy and perform their proper function.
Your breast, that it may be the receptacle of pure and virtuous principles.
They don't cup your boob.
This is wild, though, because what we're saying here is if they've acknowledged these practices but have since moved away from them, according to you, the 1980s, then still...
No, they just changed them a tiny bit. No, they still do them.
So then what I would ask is the achieving of godhood still a crucial component to these things?
Well, they say that never happened, and they put it in the Journal of Discourses that the Adam man, like man to God theory is gone. They outruled that. They also took away Kolob, no more planet. So I don't know anymore because I don't know. They go back and forth on this stuff because of how bad it looks.
Well, so because my issue is if there was ever a precedent for an interest in achieving godhood, well, that is very simply the lie that was told in the garden, is that you can be as God. And to me, that raises a tremendous amount of red flags. And it is unfortunate then that we're in a position where we can't seem to, show without the idea of like, oh, well, that's not a good, that's
don't
not
do that.
necessarily true. Right? Because it's like, if you can prove that, well, then the foundations of what you've built your church on are, there's a core of truth in there which allows it to stand, but it bears bad fruit.
Joseph, if we throw out the things that he has placed and said he spoke directly to God about this, then what is left, right? But every prophet afterward says they also speak directly to God, and they change it a little and they change it a little, just like allowing Black people to have the priesthood. That didn't happen until 1978. Before that, they couldn't go to heaven, the top heaven. They just couldn't. And so,
wasn't there, I watched something recently. I think this is something
Jesus's brother and the Black people. Yeah,
it was this whole idea that I could be getting this wrong. I think it was Mormonism. It was a hilarious cartoon. I'm not saying the cartoon was accurate, but it was an old cartoon that was probably in the 80s or 90s, and it was all about the demons who were aligned with the fallen and the humans who were aligned with God, and that Black people had black skin because they weren't willing to pick a side.
Yep.
And was that more? Okay.
That's
okay.
Yep. That's true.
That's very.
They haven't really gone away from that per se until it was unpolitically correct. Same thing as the shield, the open poncho thing that the lady was wearing. You used to, when I went through, you had to be naked, and that shield was all you had on for a time when they were in blessing you and doing all that stuff that they were showing you in preparatory. But now so many people complain because nobody likes that, like you're butt naked. And my great grandma told me, like, consider yourself lucky. I got like scrubbed in a tub, like naked. So like, okay, all these things have changed. And I'm like, okay, so now they just wear a baptism suit that zips up. And I get that they're trying to be politically correct, but this is why there's so many branches of Mormonism, because same thing happened with polygamy. When the polygamy stuff came to a head, that's why the FLDS went one way, which, my brother-in-law is Warren Jeff's nephew. And so I've done a whole show on that. He came on and talked once. They usually don't speak out, but he did. And he did get excommunicated from the church, and they took his wives, and it's a whole big thing. But they stayed true to what the real things were taught in the original, like, Book of Mormon, because it's been abridged a whole bunch.
Yeah,
and
the
so
same thing happens in a lot of churches, right? Like my wife will update me occasionally because she's an ex-Jehovah Witness, and she will say, "Oh, did you know that the Jehovah Witnesses now allow this thing that they didn't allow before?"
Yeah,
Maybe they allow beards now.
The
or
garments.
They're trying to, and they're trying to keep with the times, but because of that, you're right. There's a splintering effect, which just creates more versions of the same thing. And I think that honestly, I have more respect if you stood true to the original tenets, despite the fact that they're not palatable for the general public. Just so we
because then you're doing what God said still,
right? Exactly. But it's like how
and they took out throat slitting and the belly slitting because
We're
I
no longer
yeah.
slitting the throats of people who
We can't do it,
divulge?
I guess. Yeah, I
that's
guess.
a bummer.
Make them
I
lay on their
guess.
arms, I guess, until they lose feeling.
Yeah,
a
that's
way.
what they do. And then this veiling of the faces for women used to be because they didn't have the priesthood, and now that's not a thing either. And these aprons are green. This is a dark photo. And we're going to get into why they're green. So these are real pictures from inside the real temple ceremony. So I just want you guys to look at the thumb placement. This isn't just like, oh, I'm raising my hands up. This is what they're in a circle and they're chanting, oh God, hear the words of my mouth. Okay. It used to be Pele El. And he had bad Hebrew, and that's kind of like a horrible translation for God of this world, hear me. Okay, that's a problem because we know who the God of this world is. And then we get into signs. Okay, that looks real familiar, yeah? See the thumb? Typhon. This is OTO black magic stuff. This is not OTO came later, but I'm saying this stuff carries forward from magical places.
Because I was gonna say this doesn't look like. I mean, this looks like OTO or even there was something else that has a very similar imagery. So I thought this was the Latter-day Saints, but that's not right.
This isn't, but this is. They're doing the same sign.
Right.
So they won't tell you that. They're not going to say that. But yeah, I often wonder who the God is that they worship. You know, when you ask me that, that was one of the things that I always thought about after I got out, because, you know, in Mormon theology, we all lived in a pre-existence and we lived up in heaven and made all these spirit babies. And, you know, the spirit babies were made by God, and we all come down and we choose all our own problems. We choose our families. We choose everything that happens to us. So it's your own problem if you chose that. But also, you know, Lucifer was Jesus's brother directly. And so, you know, this gets into some weird theology.
Now that is one hell of a statement. Lucifer was Jesus's brother. And that's not something that I'm hearing for the first time. But it's certainly something that is contentious, to say the least.
Yes.
And
actually, those green aprons were given to us when you're in the middle of that ceremony. Here, let me go back. And you're sitting and you're going through this ceremony. You have your apron with you and your one-breasted robe, just like the OTO and all that. It's all, look, you guys can look it up. It's all 100% like OTO masonry type stuff. But anyway, you have your apron sitting, and at the point where, you know, Adam's kicked out into the lone and dreary world, and he's down crying out for God, and he's calling out for God, calling out for God. And what happens? Lucifer comes. It's not God. He's calling out for the God of this world, and Lucifer shows up and he's like, hey, what's your problem? Like, he's like, oh, we did this bad thing. And he's like, oh, you better put some clothes on because you're kind of naked. God's going to know. And so he's like, well, what do you have on? Because he has on a priesthood apron. It's black. It used to be Masonic. And he says, what is that? And he says, it's a sign. It's a token of my priesthoods and powers. Now, I mean, and then so everybody stands and they go, please put your apron on, because Satan gave us the apron. And it's a fig leaves, but I'm like, why are we doing what Satan told us to do? What's happening? Like, what sense does that make in any world? Like, no, it doesn't. You know, they can't explain it away. And that's why it's not supposed to be let out, but the secret's out of the bag now. So
what are we looking
also,
at here?
When you get married in the temple, your little mirror story is going to come into play. I like it a lot that it came up.
That's interesting,
So,
because I literally just took a video the other day. All I did was like open my cabinet so one mirror reflected off the other. And
Yep,
I said,
yep.
Is this unsettling to like
portal.
anybody else?
Yeah, portal. Okay, so this is mirror magic, and mirror magic is well known to practitioners. They use it all the time, where you face the mirrors and that goes on forever and ever. It creates a portal. When you get married in the temple, you are looking into these mirrors and you are bowing over this altar. See the mirrors? And you are looking into them saying, you'll be married for time and all eternity, not just time. No. And
That's
so,
interesting, because I do really like my wife, and sometimes I think about, like, I'm like, I would, to be honest, that this is weird to some people, but like when I die, with whatever sentience I still have, I'll be looking for her first. So I always wondered why the buck stops at death, and I kind of like that the Mormon Church is like, yeah, also for like all eternity.
Well, because the angels, it says we will become as the angels, and angels are neither male nor female, nor do they have wives and stuff. So I think we will all be together like a family, but I don't think it will be in the sexual way, because that what happened there, like that got the angels thrown out of heaven. So
Right.
like yeah, so I think that's kind of the basis, but I do think it's probably like an elevated, more pure love, like in a way. But this is more the thing that I worry about with this when you're bowing over this altar, like what is in here? What is in there? And B, you're doing this mirror magic and you're saying these things. Are you opening yourself up as a portal? Because now you have gone through the temple and you have received your holy underwear, your new underwear, and they have the square and compass on them over what? Over your orifices, right? Over your nipples, which have openings, over your belly button, which has an opening, and over your knee, and every knee shall bow. And actually that is also linked back to witchcraft. The slave will serve on the knee anyway.
Fascinating.
Yes. They did update these garments, and I got to add a photo in. These are now slightly sleeveless. They're like a kind of like a tank top, like a muscle shirt more, which is amazing. I never thought they would do it. And a slip for the women instead of just these crazy. So you could wear underwear underneath the slip, I guess. But
Are they comfy?
I
They look
often
comfy.
no, they're horrible. You have to wear those underneath your regular stuff. So you got to put the bra over top of it, and then you got to put that. Then you got to put the clothes. It's so many clothes, and I run so warm. I'm like, I hate this. I hate this so much. And you never feel sexy ever again.
I'm so glad
Not
though
ever.
that we got to the magic underwear segment of the show.
Wait, you have to wear that all the time?
So there's only sometimes that you can take them off. I'll let you know. Back in the olden days, like my grandma, they would not even take them off when they showered. They would keep one foot in the garment and stick their one leg like out of the tub or whatever. And nowadays you can take them off to go swimming, to go to the gym, to make more Mormons. Haha. And what else? Let's see. That's it. I mean, you have lots of pairs of these, they're like your underwear.
So you just have Not nice guy. Were you wearing this when we saw you?
Hell yeah, he was. He showed me. What are they made of?
They're all different fabrics. They actually offer a lot of different fabrics now. Some are cotton, some are poly blend, some are cotton poly blend, some are silky.
The reason that I ask is because the Bible warns against wearing like certain, mixing certain cloths, and I think there might be something to
They
that
are
because
mixed.
There is a
cotton poly.
Yeah, so cotton has a frequency associated with it that is significantly higher than like a poly blend, and the poly blend
So
has
poly
a frequency
blend
associated with it that's the equivalent of like a dead body.
So
I
they
think
mostly are poly blend or lycra or mesh or nylon or the cotton poly blend, which no one wears the cotton ones because they're super hot. So yeah, nobody does that anymore. But originally they did. See, they've evolved. This was the original, and this looks very close to the Jewish garment that they wear underneath their clothes. And then it evolved to this one piece with the poop chute in the back. And then they evolved to the boxer briefs, like in a t-shirt, which is much more handleable.
At least it's not gay. Like, I mean, it hasn't gotten to the point where it's like a thong, like everything else in society.
Although Thomas feels it should be. Thomas is like, we should make him awesome underwear, and then everybody would want some.
That's
I'm like,
true.
okay.
Yeah, if you make them nice, if you make them, they will come. Something like that.
Yes, he feels that. Thomas is very obsessed with the magical underpants.
Thomas just likes to wear thongs, though. It's not.
I think
anything to do
maybe
with Mormonism. It's a thing that
Could
we
be.
just keep trying to consult him on. We're like, you don't have to do that. Actually, and he's like, I
yeah,
want
stop
to.
that. Yeah, no. This
All right,
is
so here we have a magic
baby
handshake.
bush. Magic handshake, but you have to understand this is the prophet of the church at the time, and you should know that you never ever do these signs if you're a Mormon. I know Masons can outside of the temple, I guess, unless you're the prophet. You should not be doing this. This is the Mormonization of the Masonic handshakes, because all they did is they took them, and instead of calling this the sure grip of the lion's paw or whatever, they made it the sure sign of the nail. and made it about Jesus.
So then I wonder what is the origin of these sort of
No, they're all Masonic hand grips. They're 100% stolen.
Well, what I would ask then is like, where did the Masons get them?
Yeah, that
Because
I don't know.
That's always the thing that I've been going back to lately, and I'm very open to the idea of being wrong. You know, this is just something that I'm exploring. But I always return to this idea that they cannot create; they can only invert.
Right.
And so, you know, did they create
Where did
an
it come
elaborate
from?
system, or is there precedence for these things?
Or angel
and have
magic?
right? And have
Back
they
to
twisted it?
angels. Yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure, but it is interesting that, you know, you'll see them breaking rules when it's convenient for them. This is the picture that I told you I would get to and tell you about Rome. So this is the prophet right now, the president of the church.
Looking like
he's doing a Masonic sign on the key, but whatever. You'd have to be one of the club to know that. B, he is in Rome, and so the Vatican is right down the road, and basically, and actually Paranoid American was like, holy crap, that is not true. And I'm like, yes, it is. And he's like, they did not allow them to build a temple right by the Vatican. I'm like, yes, they did. And they did. And this is the first time ever in history that they have allowed this. And this is why I do feel with the whole Gates thing, with the Catholic Rotary Club, like all this stuff, you guys would have to hear that episode, but like all of these financial ties and the Mormons all together, it's like they're not hiding it anymore. Like I feel like they're all going to combine very soon to this. The one world religion is already here. They just don't let you know that yet.
Long ago that they erected, and it was only for a temporary stay. I forget what the reason was, but the Vatican had to sign off on it because it was within Vatican City. They erected a statue, albeit temporary, of Moloch. And you know, that was like a really wild moment because when they did it, the conversation surrounding, you know, the Hillary Clinton emails and Anthony Weiner's laptop, all that stuff was at its peak. And within a year or two of that moment in time, which Thomas did an excellent job at Bohemian Grove of highlighting that probably around 2020, there was actually upwards of 40% of the population believed in the sentiment that the elites were trafficking children.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's even more evident. I have a whole episode on how those connects go together with Diddy and into.
Yes.
It's yeah.
Well, I can tell you right now that we'd love to have you back.
Thank you.
But it's just a wild time for the Vatican to approve the erection of a statue of Moloch.
So bad.
Very weird. And maybe you're right.
They never do anything on accident. And so, and also remember, we're talking about the key of Solomon, and what is he grabbing? The key. So does he have the keys to the palace now? Is that what we're symbolizing here?
That's
like
a great speculation. And look, I know he's old, but I don't think he's just.
There's one in line. There's another.
Well, I'm saying I don't think he's just, you know.
No.
Oh, this is nice. Like this is on purpose.
This is a Masonic sign that he's doing too.
Yes.
So there's no way this is an accident. And I'm telling you guys, these, you know how they say like people that watch the news and the president's on and they're like, look at this guy in the left corner, he's doing weird stuff. I'm like, this is kind of this, you know, like this is a message for other people. And I have to tell you guys, I think it's about money.
This episode is brought to you by Matt Rife and his team over at RealRifeTechnology.com, the home of the Real Rife machine. A Real Rife machine is an electromagnetic radio frequency device engineered by Dr. Royal Raymond Rife in the 1920s, used to address various health concerns. Unlike imitation devices on the market today, Rife Technology was co-founded by Dr. Rife's relatives and longtime friend of the show, Matthew Rife. Real Rife machines are the cutting edge in wellness technology. I personally own one, and I use it all the time. I like to tune my Real Rife machine to the frequencies that help with addiction, to help curb my sugar cravings. Their Royal Rife machine is recognized as a general wellness product by the FDA. They're great for weight optimization and fitness improvement, mental clarity and cognitive functions, sleep enhancement and mood balance, vitality and sexual functions, digestive health and immune boost, skin radiance and endurance boost, healthy blood pressure maintenance, and more. And while you're on reallifetechnologies.com, be sure to check out the other products they offer and use promo code Nephilim for 15% off your entire order. That's promo code Nephilim, Nephilim, for 15% off your entire order when you visit reallifetechnology.com.
I think the Mormon church snuck up on the Catholic church and other churches with their very dedicated people, because you have to understand something about Mormons, and especially if you want to go to the temple. You don't just pay what you want to pay. You don't just put it in the basket. That's a joke. No way. Mormons are dedicated to the point where we have to give 10% of our income. And then what you do is you make an appointment with your bishop and you do tithing settlement and you take your taxes in and you show them what you made. And then they tell you how much you owe the church, and you do pay it on your gross, not your net. Yes.
That's brutal.
So they don't play, is what I'm saying. Like, at all, ever. No.
Oh, so that's a mandatory tithe. Yeah, that's
Yep.
that's something.
Or you don't go to the temple. Nope.
A mandatory tithe.
10%.
That
Full.
seems, unethical.
Yep. Well, they do lots of fun things. Let me tell you, talking about unethical. And since we're talking about money, which I love that we were, because this is perfect timing, I want to show you guys some symbols speaking in symbol language. These symbols are on the temple. These symbols are the sign of the Melchizedek priesthood.
Yeah.
Okay. Right here. This symbol is the symbol for Mammon, the god of money on Solomonic magic.
Oh no, that's just.
I don't think
that's just an
Yeah.
architectural
It's a
accident. It looks nice.
surprise.
Have you considered that it just looks nice?
It does
Yeah,
look
maybe
nice.
so.
It does
Maybe
look
so.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they put the circle in the middle. And my conjecture, now this is conjecture, is when they do this circle, that's for the representation of this, because they cannot put that on there. There's no way they would get in deep trouble. So also remember what I told you guys when I said when it's in a seal, and they call this the Melchizedek priesthood seal, the seal. They're not hiding that. When they do this and it's open and it's not got the circle around it, that means they're communing with that specific spirit. Now, why is the Mormon church one of the richest churches? Well, remember Mammon. He's over money.
I wonder if Mammon would be the same thing as Rain Man. Just because I know that Rain
Have
Man
to
is.
see.
Yeah, it's claimed that he is responsible for being able to move, great wealth from one place to another. That was like his main focus, and then there was one other thing that was less alluring, I would say, but there was a financial aspect that this was something you could leverage for wealth.
Let's see. I'm trying to Google it really fast because I was like, I'm gonna hurry while he's talking and see. But of course,
Rain Man.
it is. It says it's not the spirit Rain Man, but it is the biblical term for riches that is often used to describe material wealth. But also, this is just quickly on Google. This isn't a real.
Well, it's interesting that Google would even address that.
Mammon is a fallen angel who is more interested in heaven's pavements and the leader. Mammon is similar to the Greek god Plutus.
I'm sure that there are multiple entities that deal with similar subjects. Some are more impactful, some are less, some ask more or less of you.
Yes. And money, where money's concerned, it makes you wonder what they're doing at the top level.
I'm interested here.
What is happening?
Okay. So remember when I told you I had a little show about P. Diddy? And
yes.
I always kind of pay attention because I love conspiracies. I'm a conspiracy theorist. And when Diddy got arrested, this popped up all of a sudden on my phone, and I took a quick screenshot of it because I was like, what is happening here? On the same day that Diddy got arrested, every board member of 23andMe quit. Every single one.
Yes, that's right.
So,
all but one, right?
Yeah. Well, the main, Ann Warchicki. Yes.
Right.
Okay. But Ann Warchicki, just so you guys know, her sister ran YouTube, and she just barely died in August. Yeah. But guess what? Ann's sister's son also just died in March because he had an accidental overdose.
Yeah.
So whenever I see so many die down the line, I'm like, what is happening? Because I know one thing about Ancestry.com. I know that the Mormon church doesn't own it, but the Mormon church owns the program that pours into every single DNA, anything in the world, probably. It's called FamilySearch.org. And FamilySearch.org started a long time ago. And all of the genealogy that the Mormon church has, they built a Batman cave. I'm not kidding. And they blew the side of a mountain open. And they have over 3 billion things of genealogy in here.
That's amazing.
This is, yes. That why? But why?
By the
Right?
way,
Like,
did
why
the
is it?
BlackRock buy the other one?
I think it has closed now. I'm not 100% sure if that deals went through, but it was speculated that that was supposed to happen. So this is the highly secure. You cannot go in this at all. You cannot get near it. Razor wire, the whole like a freaking like you'd probably get ripped
Is
apart. I
this-
don't even know.
I don't know why, but all of a sudden I'm struck with the notion of an ark. This idea of preserving genetic material so that it can be
Or it's more nefarious than that, and they've got fallen angel technology stuff in here going on, and they're cloning things. But that's just my brain. I mean,
goodness, man.
it is the side of a mountain.
Heidi, can I just say you're crushing? You're absolutely crushing. You're
Thank
absolutely
you.
crushing. I'm
Yeah, dude,
already
this is
wrapping my mind around
it's
when we're gonna
major,
be back.
major Nephilim shit
Well,
over
good.
here, man.
I'm glad. I'm so glad that you guys are having fun.
This is
This would
incredible.
be
I love this.
like the genealogy stuff and the bloodline stuff. That would fall right in line with whatever the aliens are doing
Well,
or the demons.
So you guys know Joseph Smith once claimed that he was the descendant of Jesus.
Interesting.
Right? That's what I thought too. And the funny thing about Mormons is they kind of all look the same. Like if you, and I know polygamy was a thing, like I get it, but also like all of these people that these demons, which I believe are demons, talk to, right? They're like, go make as many babies as you freaking can, marry all the women, have all the babies, do all the things. And I'm like, well, is that their essence somehow? Like, are they spreading that and corrupting the DNA even further? Like, I feel we've all been corrupted at this point, and it doesn't really matter.
Well, how do
because
you feel? Do you resonate with that idea of like a Gary Wayne seed war?
I have a full episode on cabbage babies and DNA and like cloning. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's 100%. I think the seed war is real. I think there was a split with the Cain and Abel twins. Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like that the whole thing with the genealogy and the whole thing with 2020 in general was a huge grab on DNA. And you have to understand something. Even if you never did the test, even if you never participate in anything, when you are born, as a nurse, I know this for a fact. When you are born, you do something called a PKU test on every infant unless they are completely not registered, period, in the world. Supposedly to test for a milk allergy. Well, there's this big kind of controversy on, and I have some stuff in my other show about this with the actual genetic lines and the DNA lines. I'm not talking about like I think, okay? I'm talking about the DNA lines supposedly of Adam and all these things in Enoch and this whole big story, okay? And they've got them nailed down even to the Nephilim. And possibly what I feel they do with these cards that have 5 litmus papers thick and they dry them and they're perfect to like file. They have these on every single person ever in America, at least. I know because I've done a lot of them before I knew even what they were. But the milk allergy thing has a weird flip-flop for Nephilim bloodlines. Nephilim bloodlines actually can drink supposedly to this DNA. The DNA is real. Whether it's Nephilim or not, I don't know. The conjecture as it is, but this particular bloodline, their actual genetics there are more Rh negative factors. They tend to be more pale and very light and can tolerate milk for all of their life. They don't have to worry about a milk allergy ever or even a sensitivity. They tend to have extremely pale eyes or green. Sound familiar? Like all of this. And that is actual documented DNA information. Whether that's a real line of the Nephilim, I do not know. But these are the people that we're talking about when you go into the Rh negative factor and the people that live out in the mountains. I can't remember their name right now.
Well, as somebody who I have hazel eyes, so there's a green element
I have
to
green
them.
eye. Yeah.
And also,
yeah.
I'm a big milk enjoyer. I hope this is not true. Big fan of milk.
I understand totally because I have green eyes, green hazel eyes, and if Joseph Smith was a line, I'm a line because I'm a settler. But I feel like that's weird that they even know that, right? I told you that would come back up. So were they looking for something? Yeah, I believe they are. That gene of Isis that Gary Wayne talks about, yeah, I believe so. I can't prove that, but I will tell you this. Mormons are obsessed with transhumanism. This isn't from the church per se, but this is a group, Mormon Transhumanist Association. They are very big. Mormons are huge on like technology. They also like love like Star Wars, Star Trek, all these things, like anything in the future, all that kind of stuff. They're just huge nerds about it. And that's always been the case. And I feel like that this is also from the vault. This is one row in the vault of drawers.
Jeez.
Yeah, this is serious.
We're
and this
constantly reminded that this is all about bloodlines,
Nephilim.
genetics, and fallen angels.
Yep, you're not wrong. And here's one of the prophets of the church saying, as humanity now is, God once was, as God now is, humanity may become. And same with Joseph Smith. He said the same thing. And they've taken this down now. Remember, you don't get a planet, you don't get to be a god, none of the things now. You don't get polygamy. None of the good things are there anymore. Don't worry. Just got to have a lot of kids and work all the time and have a lot of money, right? But there's that. And then that skipped forward. This is okay. So this is on the Mormon church. This is on the Nauvoo temple, actually, the temple, not church. Temple is different than church. Churches are a dime a dozen, but the temple is sacred. They all face east, by the way. They're cornerstones. Used to have huge cornerstone ceremonies. Like I could go 40,000 ways till Tuesday. We would never be done. It's the gift that keeps on giving. But these two things, the inverted pentagram, which is largely associated with Church of Satan type stuff, but in Solomonic magic, a little bit different. And again, here's a seal. Okay, so this is a command. Remember, this is a command that you must do. That's a pentacle, not a pentagram. You must do what that says if you are doing the work in a seal. And the other one isn't. And these two that I researched, and you guys can look up Solomonic magic tables. I think I have one I may show here in just a minute. But my conjecture about this is concerning all this genealogy that the church is doing and all of these things for the dead that they do. They do weddings for the dead in there. They do that mirror thing for them in there. They do the baptisms for them in there. They do all the same things that the regular people do. Okay. In fact, the only time
out of pocket here, but it sounds like it's like brushing with necromancy.
Oh no, it's necromancy for sure. For sure. And I feel that, okay, the first time you go through is for you, but every single time you go through for the rest of your life, which they encourage you to go multiple times a month, is for a dead person. Period. There's no other way. So I often wondered after I read about what these meant, are they bringing things down and locking them in along with your relatives that you are doing these ceremonies for? And if that is true, are they never able to ascend? And are they taking that as a big, huge loosh grab when they do these extra ceremonies that I'm certain that they have? I know of one for sure that we can talk about a different day called the second anointing that makes their place sure in heaven. It means they've already been prejudged and that they are going to heaven no matter what they do except murder. So if they go rape somebody, it doesn't matter. And I think this plays into the fact that they could be really hurting people, kids, and or whatever to meet the needs of angels or whatever, fallen angels, and not feel guilt, right, anymore, because they don't have to be worried about that unless they kill someone. So there are some sexual abuse cases with that PACE memo thing with SRA victims that are very disturbing that we could talk about a different day. Lori Vallow just killed her kids and said we wouldn't understand why. Whoa. Because we don't get it. Yeah. And she buried them and took off. And this goes around a cult inside a cult, which is a whole nother deal we'll talk about. But there's a demonic side of the Mormon church hooked with a book, and it's a whole thing. But the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell case is huge. And they found a circle around where they died. Like there was a magical circle there. I've talked to Lori Vallow's niece, and I'm telling you guys, there is something making these people go completely crazy, just like what's his name from Timmy Boy from the Sound of Freedom stuff. All these people that seem just crazy. No, you don't just become crazy for nothing. You were told something or you did something that made something happen to you, probably, not because they were fine before that. We're not talking about genetics here. These people are far past the age for schizophrenic. I work in mental health. They're far past schizophrenic age.
Yeah, after you live enough life and you talk to enough people, I really don't buy into that idea that some people just lose their mind. I mean, there's a catalyst for it. There's a moment, something that happens, and they've just cued into something that doesn't make sense to us. But I don't think there are very many cases you could point to where the human mind just breaks in such a way that all of a sudden people just go crazy and don't make sense. I mean, we talked to, I'm going to say it, Dr. Jerry Marzinski, and he does a great job of explaining what schizophrenia is, and I tend to agree with him. And if you agree with his take that this is some sort of demonic oppression or influence by entities, then you would say, oh, okay, sure. It doesn't make sense, their behavior now, but I can understand why they behave the way they do. I don't understand what they now believe or what they suspect, but there's a catalyst. There's something going on here. It's not just your brain is broken and you stop making sense.
And why would she say, my kids are happy? You don't get it. My kids are fulfilled and happy and busy and doing this and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So you have to remember, and I always tell like my family this, because we've lost a lot of family members, including my brother, who was younger than me, to an accidental overdose, which is why I work in mental health. But you cannot, absence on the earth is presence with the Lord. They can become anything that your heart desires. They know you better than you know you. And if you want an occult person, like, they know the Bible better than we know the Bible. The only thing that the occult has a one up on us is because Christians are too afraid to study it. Right. And so there's a quote about the occult saying, if you don't want to know anything about the occult wants to know a whole lot about you. And, this was put on my heart. Like, I didn't go on this journey for fun. Like, this and me being a podcaster and everything was nothing I ever thought I would do ever in my life. God was like, I was in a very desperate situation and I was praying and praying, praying. And I said, I'll do anything. And God was like, well, you're going to do this. I felt like, and I'm like, no, I only know like 5 people and at least 4 of them don't like me. No way. I was like, I'm not doing that. And so God just kept putting on my heart, I'm like, what would I even talk about? You're crazy. I don't even know. So then I wrote to Josh Monday and I was telling him about this school. This is one of my episodes that I do. I have a whole bunch of them, different things. And I said, this is really demonic. You should check it out. Love your podcast. Bye. And he's like, no, you come on. And I'm like, no way. I don't do that. I don't know what I'd even, no, you do it. I gave you the information. And he's like, you just Isaac Weishaupt this whole thing. Why can't you come and say it? You've got the notes already. And I'm like, no. And he talked me into it. I had my son's phone or my son's puzzle light, my phone. That was like my first podcast. I am 48. I didn't know how to run the computer. I cried my first 7 episodes on editing. I had no idea.
Man, yeah. Let me tell you, talking is the fun part. The information is the fun part. The back end in production is
oh my gosh,
it's drudgery. But
yes,
Heidi, I do want to say that we've been going for 2 hours and 10 minutes.
We're good.
And I want to bring it in for a landing. But
we'll go over that another day.
You need to come back.
I will come back. No problem. I'm going to shut this because
I've had a tremendous couple of days. We can bring that down here. Let's bring it down.
Let's see.
Oh, go ahead, Top. Sorry.
There we go. You did it.
A tremendous amount, or a tremendous 48 hours for me, because I stumbled upon a conspiracy theory yesterday that lit me up like I haven't been since I was a teenager and I first fell in love with conspiracies. And now to come and do this, it's like I'm having this feeling back to back 2 days. Very exciting.
You know what's funny? Told my dad about it today. Couldn't care less. He was like, "Fuck, whatever." I was like, "Yeah."
Man. I get excited when I come across a good body of conspiracy like nothing else. It's not there's not a good show that does it for me. There's not a good movie. There's not a good conspiracy.
I'm like that too.
Yes, I always say when people are like, I don't understand why. I'm like, have you tried?
That's why 4 people don't like me. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, why do you look into this crap? Like, because it's better than whatever's on Netflix. It's better than whatever's on Hulu. It is reality is you can really fall in love with the strange details of the realm that we inhabit. Heidi, one more time for the people, let everybody know where it is they can find your work.
You bet. I am Heidi Love. I'm at the Unfiltered Rise. I'm everywhere podcasts are served. And I do have my Patreon. I do have my website. And you will get 2 extra shows a month and sometimes more. Just depends on what shenanigans we're up to that month. Also, I just mentioned that on my Patreon, we do more of the murders, Mormons, and mayhem. So just for fun facts, did you guys know that Ted Bundy was a Mormon?
No,
and also...
I didn't know that.
So was Israel Keys. And so, yes, there are many people, including Charlie Chaplin and multiple people that are in the Nazi issues. Yes, the Nazi stuff. So it gets weird. And I like it. I like to be a little weird. That's probably why girls hate me. So
I love it. I love it. Guys, go and support Heidi. Heidi is doing some deep diving and excellent presenting when it comes. You do a great job of laying this out. But I can tell that there is a tremendous amount of meat left on the bone. And so we've got to revisit this. I don't know.
Well, it's like a 200-year religion, and we're like I got 2 hours.
I know.
Yes,
I know.
We did it though. We were one slide away, anyways, and it's just a bunch of symbols on the temple, so we made it.
Well, there's still plenty of reason to bring you back, Heidi. I want to thank you for your time. And thank you to the audience, everybody who watches. Shout out, Not Nice Guy. I hope everything's okay on your end. And
he's upset. I'm watching the comments. Yeah,
he's gonna get more upset when I come back and talk
Not
about
nice
other
guy
things.
Crushes. He
I'm
gets
sorry.
it.
He asked you. He's like, you got it. I think he was the one that asked you to come on. So he's a glutton for punishment.
Yeah. I'll tell him. I'll tell him some more crazy things.
Well, something tells me that despite his disagreements, he's still a fan of your work because he was very adamant that we speak to you. So
awesome.
Is that it, Top? I don't have anything else to ramble about.
That's really it, except for, for editing's sake, go check out our Patreon. If you want to watch this live and be a part of the show, like we've had like 20 or so people in here that have been commenting, watching live, pulling it up with the guests. I think this is a good format. You can go to our Patreon and subscribe at any level. It comes with some perks when you start to go down the line, but go check out what's right for you, man. And also, don't forget to go to TopLobsta.com. We have some new shirts. Science is not settled. Make America great again with the New World Order Trump and all kinds of shit. So yeah, go support us and we'll keep on making bad content for you.
Once again, Heidi, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Peace out.
Bye.